Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Thursday, July 18th. Going to start this video. Trump is about to speak at 6:15. He's going to speak tonight. And all indications are that Trump is going to go with this divine intervention. And he's going to do, which is the worst possible thing, is use people's belief in God against them, right? When it's just a total POS move. I mean, much worse than anything he's done before or Biden's done, right? It's one thing to be a scumbag politician that lies and cheats and deceives the people. It's one thing to be a flim-flam artist and, businessman. But when you start saying to everyone you're the chosen one and embracing something that people already are whispering about, right? This is stuff that people believed. You have a bunch of clips. I have clips of him going into the hospital, and these people are like, oh my God, I'm so glad. I mean, they're just like talking about him like he's freaking Jesus, right? It's so bad. But he's going to invoke that, God protected him, and God is doing this, and God is doing that. He's God's chosen candidate, and more than just a president, but a spiritual leader. And he's not spiritual at all. He doesn't connect with God. He's egotistical, and he's really diving into the cult aspect, the QB's, wet dream about Trump being there to confront the deep state. He's really stepping into all that stuff, right? It's really sick because, I've just gone through this personally, right? So I've been doing the Sajmarg meditation for years. And in 2015, this guy, Kamish Patel, some of you guys know about this, was nominated as the successor to the previous master of the system, who was impeccable character and was, somebody who was completely service-oriented and devoted his life to serving God. And this guy, Kamish Patel, was the legitimate successor, and he's been a complete POS, right? He's been a complete fail, pushing this brighter mind scam, throwing his previous master under the bus in ways that's just despicable, and shilling for stuff and selling things and scamming people and just sucking on every level, right? And so there's nothing worse than a fake guru. There's nothing worse than a fake saint, somebody pretending to be something they're not, to aggrandize themselves and playing on people's desire for divinity. People have a natural inclination to connect to God. Even the most evil people, it's there buried inside of them. And when you usurp God's position, right, the great usurpers from my book, The Choice, there's nothing worse than that, because eventually people find out you're a scumbag. And then they lose faith in God because you represent God to them, right? And so whenever you start hearing somebody act like they're the chosen one and, all these types of things that they're doing, and they're so narcissistic and so selfish that they, there's no chosen one, right? If you are a legitimate saint or master or higher developed soul, it's because you're completely committed to serving God in a humble way, and you never think of yourself as the chosen one. You never think of yourself as, some divine being. And Trump, who barely ever speaks about God, because, Trump's gods are himself, money, power, these things, right? Trump is materialistic as they come. He doesn't have like a spiritual bone in his body. He's trying to sell the Trump Bible. And so he's taken it to a new low. And I can only imagine the speech, which I'll be covering here later in this video. He's going to be talking about himself in some way, that he's an elevated soul and he's God's chosen candidate to lead the world, and really stepping into that crap. And it's sick to do that, because you're messing with people's belief in God, and you're using it for self-aggrandizement. And it's always been the cult of Trump, and now it's the Trump of cult, right? So anyways, just want to remind people that my channel has been, was on the ropes. It's coming back a little bit since I had these bizarre conversations with these YouTube chatbots. And I've talked about this so much in the beginning of my videos, so remember to subscribe, like, leave comments, do anything to let, click the notification button, anything to let YouTube know if you're interested in my content. There's a membership program for those of you who are interested. in supporting this channel and, all the rest of it. And so there's a lot of weird stuff in this video already, and it's just starting. I copied some clips off of CNN, and, they're turning on Biden. Biden is backing down. And so let's get into it here. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about divinity. I just want to walk with my dogs, and, before I start showing you all these things that, I want to show you about the just the geometry against Trump getting hit in the ear because somebody's mapped out where the shooter was. And, when you look at the angle of the shooter, it would be impossible just mathematically in terms of geometry for the bullet to pass through his ear and not hit his head, right? And he didn't turn his head at the last minute. That's a lie. You can see it from the videos, right? You just see he was looking up and his head was turned for a couple of minutes going into right before he was shot. You can see this in multiple videos that have been out there. But I want to, that's how I'm going to lead off when I start going to the clips. But I want to talk about divinity. And, this is pure ego. So you see this, if you have had multiple pets, multiple cows, multiple, I'm just saying because we had cows, but multiple dogs, multiple cats, various types of, animals, even fish, you'll find some are more conscious than others, right? Some of them actually like, you'll find fish that like humans to, they'll interact physically with humans. There's a great video out there somewhere, and this, I think it's a woman, I'm not sure, it's this diver made a connection with like a big tiger shark, which often bite people, right? Like great white sharks are like in that class of size and aggressiveness. But this tiger shark made a bond with this person and would show up there every year to greet them and wanted to be petted. They see this with even alligators and crocodiles. People raise them and they become very social, right? I talked about how we had dairy cows, and the dairy cows that we had as a family, because we interacted with them and they were around people, were much more intelligent and alert and, just better than beef cows that aren't interacting with people, right? Even though there are beef cows that are very like pet-like, right? You'll see video after video. If you watch a couple of those videos, I get recommended videos like this all the time. And animals who have a higher level of consciousness and awareness than, the majority of pets and things. And they rise up to a level of like interaction with in terms of their ability to communicate and interact with people. You see this across the board. So there's some that are just more evolved. There are some animals that are on a higher level than other animals of the same species. And that also exists in the human framework, in humanity, right? You have different levels of consciousness, right? 60% of human beings don't have the ability for abstract thought. So people's level of perception is different. People's level of conceptualizing different things. I mean, some people are smarter at one thing, and everyone has their things that they're smart at. Everyone has talents, but there are people who have a more remedial consciousness, and even though they look exactly like other people, and they're just not, they're not as bright or not as, I don't want to say intelligent because it's like something else. It's level of consciousness. And that also plays out in terms of your relationship with God. There's primitive people that were warrior-based people, and they were into physical power, very animalistic, very, might makes right, very, everything based in your physical prowess. And this was people, Aboriginal type of people with, weaponry, and, they were warriors, and, everything was about conquering and things. And so in terms of them understanding God, is a kick-ass God that is there who just, big muscles and kicks people's asses, right? God, a wrathful God in the Old Testament. And so, very remedial understanding of God. And God would be a statue, not having the ability to think about God as being the essence of everything, right? Being, love, being, these, something etheric, right? It's got to be very physical. And so they would worship these stones, and there'd be higher developed souls that would come around, and they would charge those stones with some, spiritual energy, divine energy. And these people would worship the stones, idol worship, right? and very remedial things, very remedial approach. And then there's the next level where God is nature. God is the mother goddess of nature, God being in everything in nature. You had the Native Americans, these Aboriginal cultures, Druids, and they were more evolved, and they were, they were very natural human beings, right? Beautiful in their way, in terms of, herbalism and just being in the flow of nature and, respecting animal life and these things. But it's still, not quite what God is, right? It's still very materialistic in its approach. And each of these levels, there's, different levels. There's higher and lower, right? There's all these things. And so the next thing was God as a human being. So they would recognize somebody who was a saint, somebody who was a higher developed, spiritual being who had gone further in the spiritual journey and just knew things and was there as a higher developed soul who could lead people. And so they would worship this person as God. Many of the religions, of course, Christianity, these religions are based in this understanding. And it's limited for a variety of reasons. And there's all these different religions, different types of worship that fall into one classification, and that is that God is outside of you, that you are separate from God, and God is somewhere else. God is a being sitting somewhere else. It's an idol. It's somebody you worship, somebody different than you, somebody that you beg for power and money and wealth. You beg for kindness. You pray to them, and they may bless you with something in your material life. Everything's about your material life. You're not praying for, divinity. You're not praying to serve God. You're not praying for a purpose that God gives you. You're praying for God to make your life better and give you different things, right? And so, this is the majority of people's understanding of God as being there for your material benefit, and God is external to you. And so the first stage of spirituality is when you realize that there's divinity within you. And you also realize that you have an ego that doesn't always want to go in the divine direction, right? That you don't want to always do what God wants you to do. Because you have this battle inside of you, the ego, which is a potential demon, and a soul, which is a potential realized soul that merges back into the source, right? That surrenders its ego, surrenders itself, and goes all in and goes 100% to serve God, and does that forever. That's a choice was made, and there's no reversing that choice. You then are in a different level where you're completely service-oriented, and you've cultivated a relationship with the divinity within you, and you've surrendered to that divinity, and you allow that divinity to guide you without question. And, people who can do that are very rare. It's not a lot of people who have been able to go all in. Like people dabble, like I dabble in it, and people dabble in it, where they, connect with the divinity within them, and they, follow the divinity some of the time, and, these things, which I'll talk a little bit more of my own personal experience with this, right? But this last phase, there's, like I said, different levels of this phase, right? Ultimately leading you back to reuniting in the source, going back to your creator, and merging back into the source, which is something that most people don't want to hear about, because the 99.9% of people are completely ego-driven without any questioning their ego at all. And Biden and Trump are amongst those people. Like Biden and Trump are completely ego-driven, and they've become demonic because they are so disconnected from the divinity within them, and everything is about power, everything's about their ego and gratification of their ego. It's also a phase, right? It's an immature phase. They're not even close to being spiritual people. Donald Trump is nowhere near to even think about having divinity within him, having the soul within him, and surrendering that to that soul, because he's all about making bad choices, right? Making choices that are ego-driven and selfish and entitled and self-oriented, right? And so this is who he is, and Biden's the same way. These are two guys who are completely ego-driven, and all these politicians and famous people and celebrities, that's the case. Once in a while, they, have a come to Jesus moment, and I don't mean that in terms of Christianity, because Christianity itself is the external worship of a person who's been created into a myth-like person, right, based in his teaching, that gives you promises of divinity that they can't deliver. the religion itself can't deliver because Jesus didn't make those promises, right? They've hijacked his teachings, and his most important teachings, the kingdom of heaven is within. And once you find that there's divinity within you, it's not a cakewalk. Like, it's not like some easy thing once you make that choice and that realization that everything gets easy and great, right? But Trump and Biden are nowhere near making those choices. And when they talk about God, it's only because people who listen to them believe in God. But for Trump, there are people who think he is some sort of the reincarnation of Jesus or, some divine being, and that he's here to save them. And Trump's fed into that narrative because it really stimulates his ego, right? It really, gets him, right? It's really something that, he wants, right? It's something like, turns him on, right? The idea that people would think of him as some divine-like figure. And when he went for blood, right? When you think about Jesus, this stigmata stuff, and, it was the cross as a metaphor, not a metaphor, but as a, as the divine martyr, somebody who martyred themselves for, died for your sins, this bullshit that they sold you, right? That I got sold and you got sold, but it's not true. Nobody can die for your sins. It's the nail through the feet and the nail through both of his hands and the spear wound in his, in his, whatever it is, his liver, side or whatever, piercing him, carrying the cross and being tortured and humiliated in these things, right? And so that really is a big deal to people. Like, that stuff, it really rocks people's world, especially people who are at a lower level of consciousness. Because divinity is subtle. God speaks to you or God guides you in a very subtle way. And the divine forces work in very subtle ways, right? And so when Trump went for the bloody ear, as soon as I saw the bloody ear, I knew it was bullshit, right? I knew it was, you have these events that happen, and some of the events are organic, and some of them are staged, right? And the organic ones, they find a way to manipulate the organic ones. Like, Jesus lived a spiritual life. Jesus was a spiritual person. And they hijacked his story and warped it so that they would have this, powerful religion. This has happened with, every religion around the world. And so there's organic events that happen, and in the news that happen, and they'll try to put their spin on it and force their agenda with those organic events. But the ones that they themselves manage and their stage events, they're a lot more powerful because they can script it the way that they want to. And the story itself is controlled. Like this kid being killed, right? This alleged gunman, there's no trial. Like, how many times have you seen this? A gunman is killed, so there's no trial. There's no criminal investigation. There's no evidence that's presented. The family doesn't speak. There's no, they just create this person who can't stand up for themselves because they're dead. Can't say, hey, I'm not a murderer or whatever. This is, I'm a patsy, right? Like, so they can railroad a patsy, but it's much easier if he's dead, right? So there's all these aspects to it. But in terms of this narrative, it could have been an organic event that Trump is using and for his benefit, which is completely fucked up. But this is, when he brought out the blood and the bloody ear, I just knew it was like this, they were pushing for something that, it magnified the event, right? So even so much so, like there's a video I just saw, I'll show you now. This guy, Cenk Ayangar from the Young Turks, who's a liberal-hating Trump hater, was impressed by Trump's courage in the moment, right? Let me show you this clip here. Here's the Cenk Ayangar. This guy really hates Trump, right? He's a very liberal Democrat.
You did say after he was assassinated and got up with his fist raised that was a pretty badass move. That was your...
After the attempted assassination, just to be clear.
Yeah, correct, yes.
No, definitely. Like, I don't know why everyone, as that's part of the Democratic Party machine, feels that it's their duty to lie in every instance. But can you just give a shout out to a guy who just got hit with a bullet and then put his hand up in the air and said, fight, 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 and he put himself out there. He was not totally surrounded. He was surrounded by Secret Service, which, by the way, they should get some credit for putting their life on the line, and they were literally willing to take a bullet for him, right? But he poked his head out, and he put his arm out, and that was courageous. It was courage under fire, and I've called Trump a coward 1,000 times, but he wasn't that night. or that day. He was strong and he was brave. And anybody can see that. That's the problem with the Democrats.
Not everyone can see it, right? Some of us see bullshit, right? So one thing to know is that God and politics don't mix at all. God is not political. And, religions and politicians and people always want to say that they speak for God, that they've been chosen by God. The idea of the chosen one, which is a falsity, right? You're the one who chooses. You choose to serve. The most you can be is a conduit where divinity flows through you. You have God inside of you and you allow that divinity to flow through you. I do that to some extent here, where I have the intention, just in my life in general and here, where, I allow God to speak through for me. I open up I say, God, if you want to, use me to communicate to people, I'm down with that, right? Like it's, an intention that you set. And then years of practice of doing meditation. But I would never claim that I'm a chosen one, right? Or I would never claim that I'm the one who speaks for God, that I'm God's messenger or I'm God's, whatever it is, right? I allow God to flow through me to whatever extent, and I hope to do it better and better, but I'm certainly not a pure conduit. Being a pure conduit takes a lot of effort and years of training and commitment. But, it's there. Like I do some of that. And, anybody can do that. Anybody can work to serve as God and allow God to flow through them, but not in a way to aggrandize your ego, right? Like, so I had my own spiritual awakening years ago. Like my namesake, St. Paul, who was struck off a horse in Damascus. And I'm not St. Paul in a past life, but I had a spiritual awakening when I was 29, right? And it was very profound. And I, had an experience of the divinity within me. And I was so enthusiastic. Like everything was about serving God, and I just threw myself into it. And I was so happy, and I had a purpose. And I had been an underachieving loser up to that point in my life. I was probably, I give myself a D minus, a D, in terms of, just probably even possibly an F. And, with God, when God started to be a part of my existence and I communicating with God, I now give myself, solid B. With God, right? Me without God, a D or an F. With God, C plus, B minus, maybe B plus, being generous, right? And so I'm very clear that without God, I kind of suck. And, I definitely suck. But with God, I'm passable, right? I'm okay. But even when you cultivate a relationship, the tendency is always there to want God to, keep you safe and, do things or whatever, provide for you or make you bigger or whatever it is, right? And I resist the temptation to fall into that way of praying and, more in line of accepting what God wants me to experience. What does my soul want me to experience, right? Not running away from, the difficulties that are there. It's just, it's a wrong way to think about that God saves you from something or this or that or disaster, and somehow you're the chosen one because of it. Like what Trump's trying to, he's perpetrating a fraud on all these remedial religious people who want blood and want sacrifice and want patriotism and think that, the Republican agenda is backed by God, and it's not. Republicans are just as bad as the liberals. They just don't have power anymore. The Republicans under Reagan, those years before that, Republicans and conservatives were the power, and they were evil because they were ego-driven. They weren't working for God. They were expecting God to give them what they wanted, right? And so Trump and the Trumpers and the Republicans thinks that, the liberals are evil, which they are. The liberals are ego-driven, and they're flaunting their egos and going against the divine order of things and destroying the family and bringing all these corrupt, immoral type of behaviors and decadent behaviors. And they have, they are pretty open about not believing in God or just being out and out Satanists or whatever it is, right? And so the Republicans think, well, we're the good guys because we believe in Jesus and, to some extent, whatever it is, right? Go to church once in a while and believe in family and these other things. But also they believe in war. They believe in the American materialistic. A lot of these Christians are so materialistic, and they think that, if they're rich and they're, famous, or they're rich and they're successful, that it's God blessing them. And that's, that's the whole Trump type of mentality, right? And that's just not true. And so there's a level when you're on the Trump level and the Biden level and all these politicians level and all these famous celebrities who think that you're going to be rich and famous. Maybe they were poor, and when their original lives, maybe they've lived one or two lives, and they were poor and they were ignorant, and they see these great kings and great people who are rich and powerful, and they think, oh, if I was like that, I'd be happy. That's the real goal of life. And then they become like that, and you realize after maybe a life or two of that it didn't make you happy, and it wasn't why you're here. And your soul says, Lord, I gave you a taste of that, but you see now that it isn't, it isn't what your real purpose is. And so eventually you throw that off, and you don't seek power, you don't seek fame, you don't seek these things. You just are here, find a way to serve God and to follow the path that your soul lays out, right? But these immature souls are some of them who have just, gone south, and they come in life after life seeking power and these things, right? And so that's where Trump is, right? And he's leading a bunch of remedial people who see this kind of, blood and sacrifice and power and raising his fist and all these things. It appeals to them, right? It turns them on. It's something that they're attracted to, right? So, it's just not there, right? And I talked about this in a previous video on my journey series, but, I have been meditating now for years and have cultivated a relationship with God. And, my major choices always do what God wants me to do. My soul. It's very clear at some point, what I'm supposed to do, and I do it. But on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, I struggle with it, like everyone else does who is on a spiritual path. And you have to commit to it, like giving up your sovereign freedom of choice, and how you spend your leisure hours and things, and how willing you are to serve. Like I gave this example that my wife and I were traveling, and I saw a family stranded on the side of the road, and I felt some compassion for them. And so I prayed, and I felt, God there. I felt God's presence, and I felt the family, there with the, God, and whatever needed to happen, that God was aware, God was with them because of me praying, right? And I talked about this, and then my wife and I were driving like a couple months later, and there was a family on the side of the road, and my wife said, "You're going to pray for them?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't know, not feeling it today." So it's kind of like that, right? And, it's a battle to use your, your free time and whatever it is to serve God in a moment-to-moment basis, right? And that's the best that you could do, is find out what God wants you to do, find out how you can serve God, in the bigger things and then all the smaller things. And Trump and Biden aren't about that at all, right? They're not about that life. And you can see that here with this fake-ass thing that Trump has done, and now he's claiming divinity as just another way to aggrandize his ego. So let's get into it here. Okay, so I was going to lead off with stuff to do with the angle of the bullet, the geometry of the whole thing, right? You can't deny geometry. Bullets don't curve. Bullets go in mostly a straight line, right? They go in a straight line no matter what, even with wind. But I'm going to save that for Trump's speech. We're going to lead up to this because when I said the WWE, I had no idea he was going to roll out Hulk Hogan, which we'll get to last. But he also rolled out Kid Rock, and he also rolled out Dana White to introduce him. Dana White of the what is it, MMA, right? And so, it was just that, right? Like there was that, but it was also the Tim trying to be a divine figure, which I started talking about last night. But he, did not give the kind of speech that they promised. And so let's start off here with Eric Trump, because we'll go from like the most inconsequential. But he says this in the beginning.
Hoping their inaction will import illegal votes. Crime terrorizes our cities and our suburbs as far-left policies handcuff police. Male athletes, guys my height, 6'5", are swimming in women's sports.
Ooh, you know, Trump made this possible, right? Like when Trump was president, that's when they pushed this agenda of the gender stuff. And, you know, like so many other things, they want these things to be there so they can talk about them, right? You understand this? Like the same thing with the Democrats. They want Trump to say he wants to be a dictator. They want that. They say they don't like it, but they love it, right? And, you know, Trump didn't stand up against this gender movement when he was president. But now it's something they can use to incite their crowds, right? And say that we're going to fix this. But he caused the problem in the first place because it was the hatred of Trump that pushed this thing through. Remember, 2016 is when they rolled this out, all this stuff with Caitlyn Jenner and all these things. And so now they're capitalizing on that, just like with immigration. They want the borders to be a mess. They want Biden to fail, right? In fact, they contributed to that when this Oklahoma senator, who was a Republican, put out a more stern border bill, and the Republicans killed it so that they could run and use the border against Biden in the election. Ooh.
Destroying the dreams of young girls who have trained every minute of their lives. We no longer trust our elections. We no longer trust our judicial system. And we no longer believe that our government is working in our best interest.
Woo.
In spite of where we are today as a nation, I'd like to speak to every American.
Okay, so it's actually a little bit further back here.
They're terrified of it. They're terrified of you and the tens of millions of people watching us on TV right now. They've tried everything to keep him from you, everything, to destroy his legacy, to destroy his family. They have failed, and they will not win.
They won't win. Woo. Fight, 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 fight.
I love my Florida delegation right here.
Fight, 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 fight.
Thank you. My father stands before you with the most votes of any Republican candidate in the stadiums across our country. He entered. Our border is out of control. Millions are dead and displaced in Russia and Ukraine, a war that has no end and a war that we are funding. The Middle East has become a hornet's nest. Our greatest ally, Israel, totally under siege.
They're under siege? They're invading another country that isn't a country because they won't let it be a country. And they're killing kids, right? And this is Trump's policies. He's going to, give Israel a blank check. And that's, going to have its own issues. But that was him saying Israel is under siege, right? All right, so they rolled out Tucker Carlson. I didn't see this. This is the one speech I didn't see. I didn't really see the Eric Trump thing. I just saw a little bit of that. And I fast-forwarded through Dana White because he sucks. But I watched the whole Hulkster thing, and we'll watch that whole thing. But Tucker Carlson is a CIA shill, an asset, right?
Thank you!
Thank you! It's me, Tucker Carlson.
Oh, this is wild. Thank you! I've been... Good to see you. Thank you. I feel like I know about half the people in the room. This is...
Yeah.
of a nation. And I think there's a difference.
Woo.
I've spent most of my life in Washington where the president is at the top of the pyramid, everyone wants to be the president. But if you think about it, the presidency comes with great power, obviously. But if you think about it, that is a title that is bestowed by a process of some sort that can be subverted. And in the end, it does not confer by itself, as no title does, legitimacy. Just because you call yourself the president doesn't mean that much inherently. I can call my dog the CEO of Hewlett-Packard. It doesn't mean she is. No, it's true. And you hate to say it, but it is also true, as a fact, that you could take, I don't know, a mannequin, a dead person, and make him president. No, you could. You could. I'm just saying theoretically possible. With enough cheating, that could happen.
Woo! So that's where he's going with this.
For vice president, J.D. Vance, he's made that really clear. J.D. Vance, I'll say this about him, is a thoroughly decent man, and I'll just admit it, a friend of mine, one of the very few politicians in...
Thoroughly decent. He's thoroughly decent. That's what they said about Joe Biden. Now, Trump is going to have a few Joe Biden, like he steals some of Joe Biden's stuff right at the beginning. And then he gives a very typical Trump speech. So Tucker Carlson comes out, and he's using big words. But for the most part, this thing is for dumb people. The conventions themselves, they're like, we used to have these things called pep rallies. I think they still have them in high schools. And I would sit there and I couldn't fucking believe it, right? And just, there was kids that they made, they were like mandatory, and we go into the auditorium and the gym, right, where there's benches, bleachers, and they would come in and they would, try to push school spirit, and it was really effed up. And not as bad as in some places, because in Republican states it's even worse, where football's big and these things. These, school spirit rallies. And I never had school spirit, right? And so I would sit there and just look around at the people that I knew, who some of them were into it, because when I had different friends, or different, I would say friends, but different, interactions with people in all these different cliques and things in high school. But they're pushing this, this agenda, and the agenda's for stupid people. And so they have Franklin Graham here. His father was Billy Graham.
In Butler, Pennsylvania, President Trump had a near-death experience. No question. But God spared his life.
See, they're trying to legitimize this as being a divine moment. And, this is the two things. It's the WWE part, where Trump is really into WWE, so much so that he, the Hulk Hogan thing, and the Dana White in a different way, because it's similar, fight promotion and being a fighter, and then, the over-the-top WWE stuff. And that's for stupid people, right? We'll get into that as we go through it. But here they're trying to make Trump into some sort of chosen one.
And when we go through those experiences, it changes us. It can cause us to examine our lives and to reevaluate our priorities.
Didn't change Trump at all. They're trying to make it like it changed him. Like they're trying to say that he's a great uniter now, but then he gave an hour-long, typical, I'm great, Biden sucks Trump speech, right?
As you should. When President Trump rose from that platform, he rose with this...
Rose from the dead, right? Rose from that platform, like the Easter rising back from the dead.
Fist raised in strength, showing America his unshakable resolve to fight for them in this nation.
Fight, fight, fight. Woo! He rose from the platform. He rose from the platform.
I cannot explain why God would save one life and allow another one to be taken. I don't have the answer for that.
This guy knows nothing about God.
But one thing I do know is that God loves us, and he wants us to be with him in heaven one day.
But not Trump. He said they just hit his ear. Keep that motherfucker down. We don't want that guy.
And that's through faith in his son, Jesus Christ. You see, the Bible says that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him.
Why didn't he save his son? And why didn't he save his son, but he saved Trump, right? Why did he let his son be tortured and all these things, right? He humiliated and tortured. They've spitting on him, and all the things that they did to him in the crucifixion. And yet they only grazed Trump's ear, right? What? Explain that.
Shouldn't perish, but should have everlasting life. For as long as I've known the President Trump, I've found him to be a man of his word. Things that he said he'll do, he did.
Okay, so this guy. But this was the divinity part. Let me see if there's any more here. I didn't watch this. Oh, that's just a little bit of it. Okay, so there's this here.
For Donald Trump this evening. And so what I'd like to do, I'd like us to pray, but I'd like us all to stand as we call upon the name of the God of heaven. Our Heavenly Father.
Heavenly Father, the God of heaven.
We come before you this evening with grateful hearts. Thank you for saving the life of President Donald J. Trump.
Woo!
In his own words, it was you and you alone who saved him.
Woo! He's been saved. Trump has been saved.
We pray for the others that were injured on Saturday, for the family who lost their loved one. Put your loving arms around them. Comfort them, and may they sense your presence. We stand before you tonight. We say thank you for the provisions you have given to the United States of America. You have blessed this country more than any country in the world.
You just like us better. I just know it, God. We're your favorite, right? My wife and I watched this show, Farmer Wants a Wife. There's been 2 seasons in America. And it's kind of like a bachelor type show, but with farmers. There's contrived and all these things. And then there's one in Australia that's even sort of more organic. And what I always say is me and my wife talk during the show quite a bit and make fun of things and joke. And I always say that, the guy, the farmer is going, you're my favorite, don't tell the others. And so, as they date these multiple women. And so this guy's saying, God's saying to America, you're my favorite, don't tell the others. America isn't God's favorite. The American government, what? The government, the land, the people? What is, right? It isn't God that makes America prosperous. It's deception, it's evil. And I say this all the time about the CIA and these other organizations and things. That, they do things that keep our country going that are completely evil. And we're all a party to them, right? We're all a part of those things. Like all of us contribute or benefit from those things. And that's why I'm not as fire and brimstone and, saying how evil all these people are. Because I benefit from it. We're all part of it. We're all part of bad things that are done in the name of America. And it isn't God who does them, right? There are things that have to be done to keep the economy going and keep the world structure going that, lots of us benefit on a material level. Things that are done to the planet, environment, to other species, things that are done to other people. And, this system is a resource-heavy system. If if something was divine, the ratio between, when you talk about the perpetual motion machine, a little bit of energy is put in, and then this machine, which I don't think they've built something yet. I guess fusion and cold fusion would be examples of this, where there's a little bit of energy, and then that little bit of energy produces a lot of energy, right? And so the initial input is put in, and then the rest of the output is, I guess the universe would be an example of that, where there's this merest thought. God said, let it be. And the universe was created and is expanding even now, right? And so that's the divine, input of just a mere thought. And then all the, creation that's come from that, right? But when you're talking about an efficient system, like a car that gets 5 miles a gallon to a car that gets, 100 miles to a gallon, but all the energy that goes into getting that gas, right? And making it and shipping it, and, and then all the energy that's in this system to move a car or a truck to move a big vehicle, right? And so America is a very inefficient system. The world economy is a very inefficient system. There's a lot of input for, just negligible output, because what's coming out of the system is mostly bad, is ego-driven, waste of time. Your time is a resource. And most people are just wasting their lives away, right? And so, God doesn't bless America more than any other country. In fact, it's the opposite. Like God's there where people are really believing in God and feeling God's love when they're going through tough things, right?
Sadly, as a nation, we have forgotten who is responsible for all the freedoms, the liberties, and the bounty that we enjoy. It has all come for you.
Come for you? No, it isn't at all. Because those things are being done by evil stuff, right? Stuff that's ungodly. Our system's ungodly.
Thank you. This evening, our nation is in trouble. We're divided politically, racially, economically, with millions of people seeking refuge and hope in our dry and thirsty land. You're the only one who can fix the complexity of the problems that we face today.
God ain't fixing those problems. I mean, there's one way to fix it, and wipe the frickin' system off the face of the earth. It's one fixable thing. It's a system that's, it's demonic. So there's one way to fix it, and that's nobody likes the fix that God would give, which is the complete destruction of the system, and then starting over based in our collective relationship with divinity. Okay, so I'm editing. It's Saturday morning, July 20th. I forgot all these clips yesterday. I started this video on the 19th, the day after the convention, and I had a few comments that just came in, and I wanted to read these. These are, I don't say positive comments, but they're not, negative comments. They're observational stuff that people have. And one person says, Tucker and Vance both bashed Trump until their masters had told them to switch gears. I remember I didn't know anything about J.D. Vance, but they said that, he said horrible things about Trump and didn't like the guy. And that was one of the first things that they said when he announced him, that he was a never-Trumper. But Tucker Carlson was said to secretly hate Trump. I mean, he really disliked him when he was at Fox. And somehow he's had this transformation. But, he's a CIA shill. The other comment is here. Let me see if this is it. Yeah. I don't know what to believe, honestly, but I do have a question. Wouldn't his ear, the part you can see, be completely bruised? I don't know, but at the top of part of the ear was shot. How does the bottom of the ear look completely fine? Which is a very valid point, because, a bullet is it's not just something that affects you in terms of like it's the force of the bullet not only penetrates into your skin, causes you to bleed, but it bruises and, breaks bones and, these things, right? Like if it goes through your leg or your arm, it's going to break a bone. Like it's, if you have a bulletproof vest on and you get shot, you're going to have a bruise because of the impact is still, it might not penetrate into the, your skin, but it's, it's like, it's much harder than a punch or something like that, right? You see how people react when they're shot with bulletproof vests. But what I wanted to say here, because this is all going to come about, like that's, I made a voiceover about Hulk Hogan, which I'm going to add this morning when I'm editing, and just like I'm doing now here. But, when you are born into something, everything that you're born into in a deceptive system, the economy, your political party, your political beliefs, your family stuff, and also more importantly, your religion. When you're realizing that your system is a deception and you're controlled and you're kept from being the best version of yourself, right? Where you're encouraged to go down a depraved path, to be a depraved, immoral person. And that's what our system encourages. That's why we're consistently getting worse over time, lower functioning and things, right? Taking away, the hard work that you would do to be a good person, the farming, the homesteading, the, living in a village, these kind of normal relationships, the sanctity of marriage and family, all these things. They're taking those away from people. And it's becoming more and more degraded. And Trump has embraced the degradation. And the WWE and these things are all degraded things, which I'm going to get to in this comment coming up with the Hulkster. And so there's the degradation here. And your religion is part of that, right? The religion is manipulating people and disconnecting and becoming a middleman between you and God. Because not only will you give them money, but you'll fight for your religion. And you'll be an army. These religions have an army of, people that are, some of them are, policemen and soldiers and things, but also powerful people, governmental people and lawyers and these things that push this religious agenda that is far from connecting you to the divine within you, right? Because it doesn't want you to have direct access. Everything is about them being in the middle between you and something, whatever it is, like them getting a cut of whatever your life you need in your life, right? Whatever products you need, whatever, relationships you have, whatever it is in your life that you need, your food, your sustenance, all these things, that they are, your the medical model where they make you sick, pharmaceutical drugs that make you sick so that you're a perpetual patient, the things that the doctors do that you're always, taking some sort of medicines and then they have side effects and you're constantly on a subscriber-based model your whole life and you're under-functioning because they're making bank on you, right? And this is what Trump always would say on his show. The water industry is a $25 billion market and I want a piece of it, like Trump Water. Like he put out this goofy Trump Water shit, like all this stuff. And so this is, the degradation of your religion. This guy coming up, mixing it with politics, all these things, right? Where religion and, divinity is supposed to be pure of politics. Politics and divinity don't mix. You can vote and you can be political, but they're not, the basis of all divine ideal is that God is within everybody. And that everybody goes through hard times and people fall and we all have our battles with our egos and we should be compassionate for that stuff, but also be wary of people who have fallen. And this is the fallen, right? This whole, all this stuff is the prime example of the fallen.
We pray for President Trump that you would give him wisdom, strength, and a clear vision for the future of this nation and the task that is at hand. Continue to protect him from his enemies. I pray that you would surround him with men and women who will give him sound counsel and guidance.
Yeah, none of that's going to happen. He's going to have a bunch of yes men telling him how great he is because that's what Trump likes. But the more important part about this is that everything that is going on with Trump in terms of these things that they've done, and they're all BS things, because they didn't put him in jail, they didn't put him in the ground, and they could have done either of those things. And now they've put him into the situation where he's able to campaign to stupid people based in some divine intervention of some fake thing that happened, right? And this is them giving him that. All the stuff that they did to him is supporting him. This idea that he's being persecuted like Jesus. And Trump is an obnoxious prick who provoked all of these things, right? Like he just didn't have to be the way he is. But he is, and, the reaction to him is the hatred that he's managed to produce and all of these groups, right, is, it's self-evident. It's something that, that he provoked these things and the other people.
We pray for Melania, for Barron, and for all the President Trump's children and grandchildren.
Why Barron? Why is Barron so special? Barron's God's chosen. Trump.
We pray for Senator J.D. Vance, his wife.
All right, so this stuff, right? So then there was Dana White, who sucked, and I forgot how bad he sucks. He came off a vacation. He has never gone on a vacation. Trump's going to talk about this. And he hasn't taken his wife on vacation. And he went, and he didn't want to, leave his wife on vacation, which, like, he works all the time. But Trump called him, and gosh darn it, he did it.
My fellow Americans, it is my honor to introduce the 45th and soon-to-be 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Woo! Let's go. So he's going to come out. We'll show you that in a bit. So then they bring in Kid Rock, who, continues to suck, but now even more so because he's gone Republican, for the past so many years.
Everybody, get a fist up in the air.
Wave it like you just don't care.
Now follow me.
Look at her. Look at this cowboy woman. Look at him. Look at the Trumpers raising their fists.
Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. That's how somebody fight. That's how somebody scream. The devil without a cause. I'm back with the beaver hats and Ben Davis flags.
Okay, so he really sucks. He's going to do the fight thing more. I wanted to show you the people, like J.D. Vance was getting into it. It was head bobbing, and some other people in the audience here. Look at him go! Look at him go! Look at him! Look at him go! Do your thing! Look at her do her thing! Boom! Look at the fire and American liberty behind him. Look at him go, Kid Rock. There's the people is the key here. Here's some people stuff. Look at her go! Yes, do your thing. This is they're just getting into this stuff with Kid Rock. The Trumpers get into it at some point. I don't know, because I was watching on CNN. This is PBS. But they're, look at him go. Look at him go. Yes. What's he saying here? Fight, fight.
Say fight, fight. Say Trump, Trump.
Okay, so this is divine intervention. This, the sucky ass Kid Rock. He's going to say some things.
American badass, watch me kid. You can roll with rock or you can. I'm the ultimate. I'm like amazing grace. I'm on.
Me. I. The fire, all these things. There's a point where they showed Trump on the CNN when he was doing it. It was hilarious. Which brings us to Hulk Hogan.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You know something? When I came here tonight, there was so much energy in this room.
Look, they're all standing up for Hulk Hogan. So there was this divine aspect. They're trying to talk about the higher nature, right? And they have that. But also they have the WrestleMania stuff. And, I talked about both these things. The WrestleMania was just more prevalent. I didn't know Trump was a part of that. One of my viewers tipped me off to that. I showed you that in my last video, right? And he got the fight. This is a total WrestleMania thing. We'll get into both those aspects when Trump's speech. But they're building these two narratives for dumb people, right? Dumb people who like Kid Rock, dumb people who like WWE, dumb people who listen to Jerry Graham, right? Like, what is Jerry Graham? Bob Graham, whatever his name is. The son of Billy Graham.
I felt maybe I was in Madison Square Garden getting ready to win another world title. Or maybe I thought the vibe.
Let me see if I can find the one on CNN here. Okay, so I found the CNN feed, the whole thing here. And well, I guess I can go back to Kid Rock as well. But let's start here at the beginning with Hulk Hogan, by the way it comes out. So he came out with the American flag, and this guy's waving it as he leaves. And they're screaming USA. Now, this is Hulk freaking Hogan, Trump family, right? He's doing the Hulk stuff. You know, the whole freaking performative fake wrestling thing, and they're digging it. Look at Trump, how proud he is.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You know something?
Okay, so he's got the porn stash, which I believe this to be fake. I think this is fake, but we know this is fake, his hair, because he's bald as F, and he's old. He was bald when he was Hulk Hogan, he was bald. And now he's 20 years balder, right? And he's got this bandana because he's bald, holding on these extensions, these fake hair stuff. The mustache, the porn stash, maybe is fake, we'll see. Or we won't see, but, you know. Either way, it's all dyed blonde. And, you know, he's old.
When I came here tonight, there was so much energy in this room. I felt maybe I was in Madison Square Garden getting ready to win another world title. Or maybe I...
So that's the wrestling thing, because it's a fake guy, right? Hulk Hogan, retired professional wrestler. But later they're going to say entertainer. Because at some point they had to call it World Wrestling Entertainment because it was fake, right? One of my friends when I was a kid said he went to a wrestling event and the wrestler counted 1, 2, 3. Like he had to physically count. The kid was, you know, sitting close to the front row. And he said, you know, he counted and then hit the other guy. And he goes, well, he knew it was staged, right? It's just like this whole thing. This whole thing is staged, right? Let me explain that story better. So I'm editing. And so the kid was sitting right at ringside. And the wrestler was holding onto the ropes and, you know, kind of being in a daze, right? Pretending he was, you know, like rattled and, you know, he was in a daze from being hit and all those things. You know how they get, where they just become completely, you know, they're not knocked out, but they're out on their feet. And the other guy's just beating the crap out of him, you know, like the whole thing that they do. And he was on the ropes and he counted 1, 2, 3, like the kid saw him mouthing. And he turned around and timed it perfectly and hit the guy who was coming up behind him. And because it was timed, right? It was a timed move, right? All these things that's, you know, choreograph and rehearse. And the kid could clearly see it. He was like, oh, yeah, this is totally fake. It was just obvious to him. Let's get back to the original thing here. This whole thing is a wrestling WE staging. This was what Trump wants. Brings in Dana White, you know, a fight promoter, and he brings in Hulk Hogan. And then just the whole energy, Kid Rock and these other things. And the kid said he threw a peanut at the guy, the wrestler, and somebody came out and said, don't throw things at the wrestlers. And so, you know, it's fake, right? And as kids, we all realized it was fake, this wrestling. And I never really sort of got it like my friends did. They liked it, you know, and I kind of watched it, but I was like, this sucks. It wasn't like real sports, over the top, very performative, very staged.
But the vibe was so intense, the energy was so crazy, it felt like maybe I was going to press that no-good, stinky giant over my head and slam him through the mat, brother. But what I found out was I was in a room full of real Americans, brother.
Real Americans, brother. These are real Americans.
End of the day, with our leader up there, my hero, that gladiator, we're gonna bring America back together. One
His hero, the gladiator.
real American at a time, brother.
Now he's a fake, they're smiling, this guy's a fake character actor and a bad one. You know, WWE is for stupid people. And there's some people who still believe it's real, but for the most part, you know, everybody knows it's fake, but doesn't care. And they roll out this patriotic crap. And Hulk Hogan was always sucky, like he just sucked. And he has some personal issues. But they roll him out because of this right frickin' here. Because this is WWE crap, right? And I said it, I called it. And I had no idea Trump was a part of it. I didn't know that Trump showed up and body slammed Vince McMahon at some event. and then did all the Trump stuff, right? Like, I didn't know. Like, but he's into it. And he brought Hulk Hogan out here, and this is like his favorite speech. They're standing, he's doing a fist bump.
You know something? I've seen some great tag teams in my time. Hulk Hogan and, ooh, yeah, the Macho Man Randy Savage. But you know something? I see the greatest tag team of my life standing upon us, getting ready to straighten this country out for all the real Americans.
Final night of the Republican National Convention. So he's brought out this fake F.
You know, even though you guys are real Americans, you better get ready. Because when Donald Dick Trump.
He said Donald Dick Trump. He stepped on this big line here. This is something I noticed. He had a Joe Biden-esque gaffe.
When Donald Dick Trump becomes the president of the United States.
They might have said Donald Duck, but I think he said Donald Dick Trump.
All the real Americans are going to be nicknamed Trumpites because
you're a cult. Your folks are following a cult, and you're laughing at this moron who's saying you're in a cult, right?
Because all the Trumpites are going to be running wild for 4 years.
You guys are going to be running wild for 4 years.
So with the power of Donald J. Trump and all the Trumpites running wild, America is going to get back on track. And like Donald J. Trump said, America is going to be great again.
Well, they butchered that.
You know, when I look out and I see all the real Americans.
See, this is his fake hair. He's looking at all the real Americans. He's just a sad drug addict coming in here, bringing WWE event to the Trump thing. There's a guy, I'm not going to be able to find it. In the audience, there's at least one guy they showed who's wearing a Trump bandage on his ear.
Americans, I think about how Donald Trump, his family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised. But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero?
What's he going to do here? This steroid taking MNFer, right?
And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule.
So he's saying that this event is a wrestling event, Trumpomania. He's just outing this thing as being a WWE style fake thing, right? The king of the fake things, the fake patriotic crap that the WWE sells to their stupid viewers.
Again,
Woo!
let Trumpomania
Woo!
make America great again.
Woo! Look at him. Look at Trump standing, smiling. Like he loves this thing. This is Trump's choice. This is the stupidity of this going, marketing stupidity to the stupid, right? USA, USA, USA.
You know something, Trumpites?
Trumpites, you cult followers. You stupid, moronic cult followers. They don't respect their audience, right? Like they pedal to the base level consciousness, the low level consciousness.
I didn't come here as Hulk Hogan, but I just had to give you a little taste.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan, a fake actor who just talked about the thing that happened to Trump. Like this is, they're not, talking about this as a real life-threatening attempt. They're talking about it as a patriotic event, aka a WWE stage thing, right?
My name is Terry Bollea.
Terry Bollea.
And as an entertainer, I love you too.
An entertainer, right? He's not a wrestler. He's not a real wrestler.
As an entertainer, I tried to stay out of politics. But after everything that's happened to our country over the past 4 years and everything that happened last weekend, I can no longer stay silent.
Why would you be important rollout when what happened last weekend? He was already scheduled to appear before Saturday. Right? They didn't just roll him out. I saw what happened, brother. I saw what happened, brother. And I called Trump up and said, put the phone on your other ear, Trump. You can't hear me. Oh, yeah, okay, there it is. Yeah, I called him up and I said, Trump, I want to give a speech in this thing after I see you get your fake ear bloody by a fake bullet, imaginary bullet. This is my kind of thing, Trump.
I'm here tonight because I want the world to know that Donald Trump is a real American hero.
I want him to know, and only a fake wrestler could tell you that.
And I'm proud to support my hero as the next president of this United States. You know, guys, I've known Donald Trump for over 35 years. Hold on a second, hold on. I just had a flashback.
He just had a flashback because he's been taking a lot of LSD lately.
I just had a flashback, man. This is really tripping.
It's really tripping, man.
You know, the last time I was up on stage, Donald Trump was sitting at ringside at the Trump Plaza. I was bleeding like a pig, and I won the world title right in front of Donald J. Trump. And you know something? He's going to win in November, and we're all going to be champions again when he wins.
Woo! Okay, so listen to what he just said. He had a flashback to when he was in Trump Plaza, and Trump was in the audience because Trump liked the wrestling. He likes this stuff, right? He likes this fake stuff. And he was bleeding like a pig, not because he was in a real physical battle, but because it was, it was something that they staged, fake blood, whatever it was. The poor wrestlers had to cut the less popular wrestlers had to cut themselves. The Hulk Hogan's, they had the fake blood. They broke out the fake blood. He's standing in front of Donald Trump with fake blood, and then he remembered that event, right? What brings that up, Hulk? What happened recently, Hulkster, to the fake blood of Donald Trump? Okay, so I'm in the editing process, and I want to add this. Trump gives a very long speech here, an hour and 36 minutes. I only covered the beginning part to do with the transformation. I didn't get into all of his, typical Trump speech. Hard to listen to, very low energy. But I did a voiceover I'm going to insert here about the degradation of wrestling and how Trump is, Trump's degradation and all this stuff. But first, I went back and I grabbed this clip of Trump applauding Hulk Hogan as being an actor, right, entertainer. And, it's just so fake, right? When you're associating with something fake, and Trump got into the world of wrestling, which I showed you in my last video, and he was a part of that fakeness, right? Willing to fake things. And so let's go to that here.
But they all wanted to be here. They called. And how about the Hulkster? How good was he? Is he up? Where is he? Boy, oh boy. They may call that entertainment. I know about entertainment, but when he used to lift a 350-pound man over his shoulders and then bench press him 2 rows into the audience, I say maybe entertainment, but he is one strong son of a gun. I will tell you, I watched it many times. There aren't a lot of entertainers that can do that, right? You were fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm just waking up Saturday, July 20th. Man, good meditation. And I want to add this somewhere right after Hulk Hogan says Trump went to one of his events. So when I'm editing, I'm going to put this in there. But, let's start with that, right? So Hulk Hogan says Trump was, a big fan of WWE. Of course, he hosted some of these events at the Trump, whatever, Plaza, wherever it was, Trump, wherever he says there in the video. And we know that Trump was involved with tackling Jim McMahon or whatever, Vince McMahon, who is a degraded, horrible person that runs the wrestling world, right? So first, let's talk about how is Trump a fan of wrestling. Trump grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's, part of an elite family. His dad gave him $1 million to start his business empire, right? He, came from his dad was rich, and he became, a wealthier person. And he loves to hobnob with the rich and famous. He has all these country clubs, and you see who his friends are and the people he, is interacting with, right? An upward climber, somebody who likes the, people who are rich and famous. Celebrity whore, who do this Celebrity Apprentice, right? He likes to be around those types of people. And he likes wrestling. Like, wrestling sucks. And Hulk Hogan's like his character, and it's for really stupid people. Like, it's just degraded. It's not like it's so lowbrow, so low vibrational. I mean, it's just bad content. It's really stupid. It's stupid content, right? When I was a kid, it was too stupid for me as a kid. Like, I'm like, this is like way worse than regular sports. You knew it was fake. It was, over the top, very performative. And so it's just for stupid people. And like, as you get older, it becomes, well, that was like, it's like bringing out a cartoon character, but it's even worse than that. Well, I guess the cartoon character people are degraded, but it's morally degraded. Vince McMahon has been charged with all these heinous accusations and things. We know that the wrestlers had to do sexual favors for him and other people. So there's a, some sort of depraved sexual, gay sexual connotation to the wrestling world with Vince McMahon. He had these tapes of degraded sexual behavior with just, all kinds of, people, men, women, all these things. Like, he's under fire. He had his daughter become part of it. And one of the highlights was Stephanie McMahon had her face. She was sitting on the ground, and some giant, like, Samoan guy with a big, giant, fat ass sits on her face. I'd show you the video, and I don't really want to, but they would copyright it, so they suck at that too. But, it's degraded. To have your daughter get their face, big, giant, sweaty ass faced, just degraded. It's just scummy. It's like the modeling industry and the porn industry, right? It's very low vibrational. The whole wrestling thing is seedy and gross and stupid and just horrible. There's nothing patriotic about it. They just say this kind of crap. There's nothing, it doesn't represent the best of America. It's just low consciousness, low vibrational. It's like a different form of porn. And everything, the drugs and depraved sex and all these things are part of it. But Trump likes depraved because he had Stormy Daniels. He wanted her to be on The Celebrity Apprentice, and he wanted to have sex with her. He pursued her, had sex with her. Like, she was disgusted by him. She's a porn star, and she was disgusted by Trump, and she just went along with it because she's a porn star. Like, and there's nothing more degraded than that, to cheat on your wife with a porn star, right? It's one thing to cheat on your wife, but have unprotected sex with a porn star and then have sex with your wife, right? If you have sex with a porn star, what's the first thing you think afterwards? What disease do I got? Right? That's what you would think. Like, these are, it's gross, whatever the thing is. These people are, it's like criminal level. It's, it's kind of a, demonic, this kind of human trafficking, crappy, just, horrible stuff. The porn industry is depraved, and all these people who are, involved in it are suicidal and, on drugs, and it's, criminal and just absolutely gross. Trump had sex with a porn star, and then he started to realize, well, I don't want this to come out. So he had his gross, disgusting fixer Michael Cohen. There's nothing more like a lawyer who's a fixer. Just, think about how icky Michael Cohen is. And Trump like hammers Michael Cohen now, but he worked for Trump for years and years, fixing Trump's disgusting problems, right? Because Trump's an immoral piece of shit. And he, banged a porn star and then went and slept with his wife. Well, maybe, who knows if he still sleeps with her. But I mean, just think about that. Like if your husband or your wife was sleeping with a porn star and then had unprotected sex with you, it's not only, just betrayal, but it's the diseases and the grossness. And you share energy when you're intimate with somebody. And so it's just so degraded and low. Trump bought the Miss USA pageant and he was paying that woman McDonald or whatever her name is. She's a former Playmate. Another seedy thing, this Playmates, Hugh Hefner, another despicable kind of just gross. We know all the Playmates who have died, all the drug use, the Bill Cosbys and the people that hung around that disgusting, vile person of Hugh Hefner, right? And Trump paid for her apartment so he could regularly go have sex with her while he was married. And, Melania hates him. She can't even, at the end of this thing, she's going to, can't even kiss him. Like, she's disgusted by him. She wouldn't pair with him in public anymore, right? There's a great thing for The Apprentice where she said, I showed this clip before, I found it, but it's like the second season of The Apprentice, and, so gaudy, like they have all this gold everywhere. It's just it's, Trump's stuff is just so gaudy. It's like just over the top, and, they're in the Trump apartment, the apprentices, and one of the girls says to Melania, "You're so lucky," and she goes, "He's not lucky? To be married to me, he's not like this." Is the kind of people they are, right? So there are a couple of comments I want to read here. Let me just get this situated. I've got to switch hands with the mic. So I woke up, this is on my phone. "I think it's so easy to judge someone who chooses to put themselves in a difficult and public place because he wants to help his country." Right? But then there's this. "I voted for Trump the first time, and I wished, and after the first time after he wished Ghislaine Maxwell and lying about wished Ghislaine Maxwell well, and lying about not knowing about Prince Andrew's situation. That was it for me with Trump." Of course, he said that stuff about Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the quote here. "I've known Jeff for 15 years, Jeffrey Epstein. Terrific guy. Terrific guy." He says great guy, but, this is even better. "Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. Many of them are on the younger side. And Trump liked 18-year-old girls. I mean, there was barely legal. So when he says Jeff liked him younger, he knew that he liked him. I mean, he just knew, right? He knew the guy for 15 years. Hung out, videos of them at parties, right? Clinton and them, all right, sure. They're all part of it. It's not like the Dems and the Republicans were, one's moral and one's immoral. But at least the Democrats don't pretend to be moral, and they're not pretending to be Christian. But there's nothing Christian about the WWE and Hulk Hogan and Trump. And Trump's not a godly person. He said Jeffrey likes younger women as much. We likes women as much as he does. Trump was married all of those times. Like Trump's always been married, right? Like he wasn't single for very long, and he cheated on all of his wives. It's in the divorce. We know about Melania stuff and the other divorce papers, right? And he's a depraved person, Trump. Morally, hangs out with despicable people, criminals. He had criminal fixers, people who were there to make sure that Trump didn't go to jail and give him plausible deniability, to have his fixer pay off his porn star that he cheated on with his wife, and he was worried it would come out that he was with a porn star because he figured, if the Christians and the people on the right found out about me and Stormy Daniels, I'll be politically done. And people are so desperate and thinking this guy is holier than thou and he's some kind of a rock star. And why would he bring the WWE and Hulk Hogan into something that's just degraded and, the people cheering this on and all this stuff. It's just low. It's low vibrational crap. Trump's has always been like that. Just seedy and just, it's the worst of the worst. the worst that America has to offer. It's fake and all these things, right? And Trump is, that guy. Like Trump is, he embraces all this low vibrational stuff. Money making, egotistical, gaudy, sexually depraved, just a bad person. Nothing godly about this guy. Nothing patriotic or unselfish about this guy. And I'm still getting comments, very few of them, from Trumpers, and you got to assume everything with Trump is fake, because Trump is fake. Like, he's just a liar and a scammer and these things. He's been exposed time and time again, always being on the wrong side of something, and people are always making excuses for him. Like, there's nothing he can do. He's right. Trump is right. He could shoot someone in the face in Fifth Avenue. He could bang a porn star, get caught, cheat on his wife, and then come out and say, God saved me, right, from something that's obviously fake and staged, right? All these things. It's classic Trump, right? And people buying into it. Like, he shows you who he is. He shows you constantly. He's not hiding who he is. He's a depraved person. He's a low vibrational person. He's a liar and a cheater and a egotistical piece of shit, selfish, narcissistic, and all these things, right? All the negative things, big ego stuff, right? And just hostile and all these negative qualities. He's got all the worst character qualities, and these people are lapping it up and looking like he was some kind of hero and savior, and they compare him to like Jesus, right? So, like, that's pathetic. Like, yeah, how can you call yourself a Christian and think this is a good guy? He's against all the things that you stand for, the people who are into family and, these things, traditional morals. Like, he doesn't have those things. 3 wives, cheated on all of them, right? And just a bad person. With porn stars, like, not even like, he had some affair or something. He's still like prostitutes. Like, he's that guy, right? He's a depraved, immoral, God knows what kind of eyes wide shut things he's experienced in these other things, right? Like, Trump's he's into low level stuff. That's why he likes the WWE. And that's why he rolled out Hulk Hogan here. And, there's what Hulk Hogan represents, as a character, and it's not great. It's stupidity and, low vibrational content, double digit IQ stuff, right? People who are stupid and, eat this crap up. It's bad content. He's a bad actor, an uninteresting, unimaginative, thug, character he's created. Cartoonish, right? Childish. And then there's how seedy the WWE is behind that, just what it represents and what Vince McMahon is in all of it, right? It's scum. It's scum, and Trump loves scum. Trump loves to be, put his face in the freaking scum and just like dive into it and bathe in it and stuff. He's a scummy person that likes scum. All right, we'll get back to the Hulk Hogan speech in a second here, but just 2 more things to add is Trump's connection with the rap community, right?
Take over the world when I'm on my Donald Trump shit. A young rapper named Mac Miller just did a song called Donald Trump, and I've just been told it hit over 54 million. 54 million people. I want some money, Mac. Give me some money. I'm entitled to 25% at least. Mac.
So this is years and years ago, and they had this fake convention on MTV for Eminem as president. And Donald Trump, wearing a pink tie, comes out, and he says this.
I'm always right. I'm Donald Trump. I'm always right.
Yeah.
Got brains, he's got guts, and he's got Donald Trump's vote.
So this is a fake convention. He's doing what Hulk Hogan does, right? Trying to be a reality TV star, entertainer, piece of shit, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, our great candidate, Slim Shady.
And then they come out and they're saying shady, shady, and Trump's mouthing them. And there's other rappers that embrace Donald Trump. Rappers loved, of course, we saw Kanye being a part of Trump's, his first administration. At least he met with him, all that stuff. Trump was loved by rappers because he was like this guy who would, he'd get into these rap battles. I talked about he was like this 80-year-old billionaire rapper who would get into these feuds on Twitter in the middle of the night and, he'd do these things and it would help boost his profile, the way they'd have these fake rap feuds, right? Like all this stuff is so fake. The rap community is also fake. And Trump just such an attention whore, right? Like the guy loves attention. And somebody who loves that much of attention doesn't, he doesn't have a service mentality. People need to be fed by other people's, appreciation and all these things that he gets. The crowd, yelling his name up on all these things I'll show you later on. And someone who needs to be seen and needs attention isn't service-oriented, right? They're deprived, they're bankrupt of the kind of energy you need to serve other people, and do it in a way where you're serving people without anybody knowing about it, right? It's the kind of people like in high school that would do nice things and then post it in their, in their yearbook things, the things they accomplished, making a big deal about helping other people. Some sort of like horrible, these preppy like cheerleaders who would go out of their way, and they're horrible people that would, now of course on social media everyone wants to show how great they are and how service oriented they are. But people like that aren't service oriented because they're too bankrupt internally. They don't have anything to give. They don't have love in their hearts to give to other people. They need to be fed, right? Madonna, Madam Expiration Date, saying she, there's this old clip from Oprah Winfrey that I found and put in a video. I can't go back and find it now, but she talks about how, in her career, earlier in her career, she needed to be fed by the audience. She needed to receive all that energy, materialism. Trump is a very materialistic person, and people like that, you deprive a little bit of God's love. God's love's in everything, but in a grosser form, in the, materialization of things, right? And so when somebody's really materialistic, they're not getting very much divine nutrition because they're not connecting to God, and their egos are too big. But they receive through, superficial things, likes on Facebooks and things like this. They need to be fed positive energy because they're, so dark and depraved. And so let's get back to Hulk Hogan here.
And like I said, I've known that man for over 35 years, and he's always been the biggest patriot, and he still is.
He's the biggest patriot.
He's always told you exactly what he thought, and he still does, brother.
What you want to hear, just like you do, right? You're feeding the red meat to the audience.
And no matter the odds, he always finds a way to win. And when he's back
wait about 2020.
in our White House, America is going to start winning again.
Look at Trumpers all standing up. Like everyone's on their feet for Hulk Hogan. Like this is the level of consciousness. This guy, this dope, talking to dopes, right? Dope on a rope.
Guys, over my career, I've been in the ring with some of the biggest, some of the baddest dudes on the planet. And I've squared off against warriors.
Not warriors. You squared off against steroid pumped up, fake bodybuilder, not bodybuilders, fake wrestlers who, all greased up with oil, wrestling around with each other, faking, these things. And these scripted events, right? These aren't real sports. It's not a real battle.
Ooh, yeah, savages. And I've even, like I said, body slammed giants in the middle of the ring. And I know tough guys. But let me tell you something, brother. Donald Trump is the toughest of them all.
Come on, bro.
They've thrown everything at Donald Trump. All the investigations, the impeachments, the court cases, and he's still standing and kicking their butts.
He's still a butt kicker. He's still a butt kisser. I mean butt kicker. Woo! Like this fakeness of the thing.
We never had it better than the Trump years. Back then, we had a thriving economy. We had strong borders. we had safe streets, we had peace and respect around the world. But then we lost it all in a blink of an eye. Crime is out of control, the border is out of control, the price of food and gas and housing is out of control. And the only person who can clean this up is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Look at the cheeseheads. Cheeseheads agree. Look at these freaking cheeseheads. These cheeseheads know that Hulk Hogan speaks the truth. Okay, so I want to show you something here. I took a little break, went for a walk with my puppers. But here is, watch this here.
You know, guys, I really, really love this country. And I've lived the American dream. And I want my kids, your kids, and all those little teeny Hulkamaniacs out there to live the American dream too.
Yeah, there's no more Hulkamaniacs, right?
This
there's a Hulkamaniac right here.
November, guys, we can save the American dream for everyone. And Donald Trump is the president who will get the job done. So all you criminals, all you lowlifes, all you scumbags, all you drug dealers, and all you crooked politicians need to answer one question, brother.
What is that question?
What you gonna do when Donald Trump and all the Trumpomaniacs run wild on you, brother?
So, what are the Trumpomaniacs going to do against criminals and drug dealers and crooked politicians?
God bless you, and thank you.
All right, so before that, let's go back a little bit here. So it says here, Hulk Hogan, retired professional wrestler. And I watched this last night on TV, like on YouTube TV. This was broadcast live on YouTube. And it's the same coverage. It's a CNN, same coverage. But what mine said, and this was kind of interesting. So here you can see just the bottom of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get a good shot of this because I didn't know it would be a thing. But it said professional entertainer and wrestler, right? You can see the entertaining here. See if it shows up a little bit more here. Actually, it's going away. But it says professional entertainer. And it's interesting that they said professional wrestler on the one that was on YouTube, and the one that was on regular cable news, it said professional entertainer because that's what he is. He's an entertainer, right? He's not an athlete. Woo. Like, this shouldn't have rocked. Right here he is pointing at Trump. Trump's doing the power fist. Fight, 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 fight. I mean, it was just pathetic.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and President of Samaritan's Purse, the Reverend Franklin Graham.
Franklin Graham. So they went from WWE to this guy claiming Trump was saved by God. So they play that goofy song again to introduce Trump.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again, just my children and my wife.
Boom, it's Trump. Trump and Vance. Look at Vance's name.
Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause our flag still stands for freedom.
Yeah, it doesn't, though. Right? You know, where our flag is in other countries, those countries aren't free, and neither is America.
And they can't take that away.
Yeah, they can totally take that away.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Look at him go. Look at him sing.
And I won't forget.
Look at them into it. They're into it, right? These double-digit IQ MNFers. And so here's the thing about freedom. Freedom is really the freedom to do wrong. It's not the freedom to do right. You can always do the right thing, right? And God endorses it. But God also gives you the freedom to do the wrong thing. And that's what makes our lives, our own. We have our own sovereign identities and choice. We have our own egos. And so if we were all had to mandatorily do the right thing, then people wouldn't be able to think and wouldn't be able to have ideas, wouldn't have their own creative force. They wouldn't be able to, make wrong decisions, make mistakes, right? You would just be perfect, always doing what God wanted you to do, what your soul wanted you to do, always making the right choice, right? And so freedom is really the freedom to do wrong, in terms of our own choice, right? Because there's one choice, it's the choice your soul wants you to make, it's the choice that God wants you to make. And there's a very, walking the razor's edge, a very narrow path of doing what you're supposed to do, doing the right thing, doing what, there's infinite amounts of wrong choices. Think about the millions of different wrong choices you could make in whatever, you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do this one thing, but you have the freedom to choose to do the wrong thing, right? And so that's what freedom of choice is. Talking about abortion, right? You have the freedom of choice of having an abortion, at least in some states now. But is that ever the right choice, right? Is it ever not murder? And maybe in some cases it is. I don't know. Medically or whatever. It's between you and God. But what I'm saying here is freedom of choice. When they talk about freedom of choice, it's to choose to do the wrong thing. And so it's a bad thing, right? I mean, it's something good that we've gotten because now we have to learn to make the right choices. It's something we have to learn how to do. Learn to follow our hearts, learn to, figure out what the right choices are and then make those right choices. But how many times in your life did you know what the right choice was? What the godly choice was, and you decided to do something else? And that's the freedom they're talking about here.
Who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you.
It's not a right. It's an opportunity to choose the right thing. It's not a right, God-given right.
And defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. Sing it. God bless the U.S.
Why do you have to you can just watch this on the internet. It's on everywhere. I mean, why are you taping this? How much better is your phone quality? Or worse.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee.
So here it is. Look at this. This is supposed to be the chosen one.
Across the plains of Texas.
Look at this motherfucking Trump sign. This was great. This is the stuff I used to really appreciate about Trump. So he's so freaking gaudy and so narcissistic. But he loves his big-ass name, right? He loves to put his big-ass name everywhere. He's in love with his name. There was a thing where he was talking on The Apprentice, and I'd go find it, but, I got to get this video done. But he was saying to somebody that, he goes, there's a saying in New York here, Trump is Trump. He goes, meaning that whatever Trump is just the best. And I'm like, nobody says that but you. That's a saying you just made up. But he puts his name everywhere, right? For me, my name is something other people call me. I don't identify with my name. I understand there's a brand, Pockets of the Future, and my, Paul Romano, my name, Paul, whatever it is. And whatever the various things that people call me, nicknames or whatnot. But those are for other people, right? It's not, it's what people call you. If someone calls you dad, you're not dad to yourself. You have a dad, right? But your kids call you dad or mom or whatever it is, right? But Trump loves this name. He wants this name plastered over everywhere for eternity. It's part of his legacy. He just wants to be remembered and recognized and thought about. He loves attention. Because he slaps this frickin' name, Trump Tower, these various places, Trump Tower, Trump. I mean, when you drive by these buildings, you can totally see the name, right? Everywhere he has one in Vegas, these various places, right? Here's other stuff here. Trump places here. Trump place. Trump something else there. Trump. Right? They put Trump everywhere. There's the guy. Trump Tower. You know, we've seen all these things. Trump International Hotel. Trump. He loves the way and his real name is Drumpf, right? Donald Drumpf. I mean, they changed their name. It's not even his real name. But he loves that name. He loves putting it everywhere. He loves people to think about him like that. Now, people carrying signs of Trump now is even better, right? And here he has some of his brands here. This is Trump Tower, Trump Steaks. His hats there, Trump Buildings. These things here, Trump ties, it's Trump on them. Trump branding, he loves the stuff. It's just sneakers with big T and Trump on them. Done more Trump Towers, Trump, and Trump wine, and Trump vodka. You know, sneakers, Trump ties, Trump collection, signature collection. He puts his name on everything. Wants his logo. He wants you guys to see his freaking logo everywhere. Ivanka Trump, 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 Trump. I think that's the one in. Is that the one in Vegas? He loves his Trump stuff, right? The Trump. Trump is everywhere. The Trump there, this one here. And so, like, he loves putting his name on shit. So the guy's performing the song. He comes out with this giant, this is not a humble, godly man. This is a guy who wants to be God. Like, he wants to be thought of as a godlike person.
From sea to shining sea, from Detroit to Houston, and New York to LA.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's me. What's my name? Say my name. Say his name. Say his name. This guy was almost tragically killed. Say his name. Say his name. Trump's ear. Say Trump's ear. Everyone say Trump's ear. At least you know you're free.
And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me.
It's not a right. And out of nowhere, the podium comes up with the teleprompter. They're rolling this out like it's so gaudy, like this is classic Trump. The pillars. Boom. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee Greenwood. Boom. Fight, 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 fight. These towers aren't lining up. Now they are. They dropped the backdrop here. USA. USA. That's so fake. USA. What's that post-it doing on your ear? USA. USA. Look at these patriots. Look at these patriotic women.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Wow.
He's got a post-it, though. What's it say?
Thank you, Dana.
Dana.
Thank you, Kid Rock. Sometimes
Kid Rocks. Kid Rocks rocks.
it's referred to as Bob.
That's one funny thing he said. Kid Rock, real name is Bob.
And thank you, Lee, right from the beginning. Thank you very much. What a talent. What a beautiful, beautiful
What
song.
a talent. What an amazing songwriter. So a lot of these convention members are going to insert this here. Well, the video speaks for itself.
Point over the course of the last 3 days, and it's expected to be the peak tonight. I'm here with Andy Gibson, it's a delegate from the state of Mississippi, central Mississippi, I believe, and you're wearing something right now that has become something we've seen all over the place over the course of the last couple of days. Why are you putting a band-aid on your ear?
I'm wearing this to stand in solidarity with my president, Donald J. Trump. He came within a millimeter of his life Saturday, but he got back up. He's in the fight, and I'm in the fight with him, and we're going to fight. We're going to win in November.
Now, you said this is your fourth convention.
Yep.
Mine is.
Thank you. Friends, delegates, and fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope. 4 months from now, we will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the four greatest years in the history of our country.
The world, history of the world.
Together we will launch
She gets it.
A new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed.
Because you're a good healer. So what they said was going to happen was he was going to give a speech. He wasn't going to use Biden's name. It was all going to be positive. It ended up being a typical Trump speech, whining about how they persecuted him, whining about all the court cases, talking about how great it was when he was president and how bad it is now. That went on for like an hour. But this is the part that supposedly changed, right? Where he's talking about being a uniter. He gloms on to one of Joe Biden's main lines. Like, Biden is trying to be Trump and Trump is trying to be Biden. It's bizarre.
Must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America.
This is a total Democratic line. Obama said it, right? And now Biden says it all the time.
Because there is no victory in winning for half of America.
That dude knows about it. Like, that's what he says. Biden says it all the time, right? It's the United States of America. There's no red states and blue states. It's United States, right? These things. They talk about being a uniter, but their policies are both divisive because they have to be. There's two main branches of thinking, the conservative and the liberals, the Dems and the Republicans, and their ideology and their beliefs and the things that they want to happen are opposing almost all the way down the line. You know, I'm editing, so I'm adding this. The left-right paradigm is, the premise of the left-right paradigm is you need two polarized forces, like Michigan against Ohio State, or the Red Sox versus the Yankees, right? Where there's hatred and bad blood and history and like a divorce and, you know, these things, the stories that are there that these people have, the fans and the, you know, the supporters of these different oppositional institutions will go at each other. And the energy that is derived from this is substantial. Now, if you had two candidates that were very similar and their policies were very similar, it was very subtle and really didn't seem to make a difference, and you were like, either one of these guys would be okay, and, you know, it's just milk toast, like it's just boring, then there'd be no attention to it, right? So they have to make something that's a distraction. And think about how much politics and the division is a part of the news cycle and all of it. Celebrity culture, all these things, right? It's in movies, TV shows, all these things that are there. These two oppositional points of view. This battle's been going on my entire life. I've seen the battle between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's got to be divisive. Its very nature is it has to be divisive. It has to be full of drama because drama sells, right? You know, there's things that are exciting. Fighting, sex, you know, drama, these things that draw attention to people, right? These types of, things that are there's a lot of energy involved. And for Trump, it's this, right? And, you know, Biden. And they need the division. The division's the reason people are watching this thing.
So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States.
He's very low energy. He's kind of getting low energy, Jojo Bagoose. He's Sleepy Joe. He's Sleepy Donald.
Thank you.
Woo! Look at you crying. Why you want me to do? Fight, Trump, 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 Trump. Oh, he did it. He's the nominee. You beat Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley.
Thank you very much.
Trump. Say that name. It's up there for you to read if you want. Get on all the pictures. Look at them. Look at these two old Trumps there.
Thank you very much. And we will do it right. We're going to do it right.
We're going to do it right.
Let me begin.
Make America great once again. They added the once.
begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt.
Okay, it's really hard to call it that if you believe the official story. It's some kid with no motive, no identity, pretty much no information known about him. He once said he has a 10-inch penis and a thing, but like that's right in line with what Trump would say, right? But the kid is, he's an innocuous kid. It's just a blank slate. And to say it's an assassination, make it sound like it was a deep state plot, which the Republicans and people believe, but there's no evidence to support that, right? Because, he'd be dead that way. If it was a real professionally done, all of it, right, then he'd be dead.
At my rally on Saturday.
Whoa.
As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life.
I'm going to show you this in a moment. I'm going to wait till he gets to one point here. Then I'm going to show you how I was originally going to start this video. But this is just completely supported everything that I'm saying.
So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please.
Tell us what happened, please, Donald. Donald, what happened? Donald, we didn't see it for ourselves a million times. What happened, Donald? Donald, tell me, Donald, tell me.
And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened.
Therefore, and henceforth, I will tell you what happened.
And you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell.
Okay, this is just a complete lie. Like he's going to talk about this again because, he's going to have to, and it's going to be part of his spiel. He's going to put this out. This is his new Donald Trump is a uniter, where he's always been the most divisive candidate and politician in history, by far. Very passionate supporters and lovers of Trump or haters of Trump. They hate Trump more. The haters hate Trump harder than they hate anybody else. And the lovers of Trump love more than they love any of these other politicians. He is the most divisive politician. He's the most divisive person. He's always been this way. And now he's a uniter, like they're trying to rebrand him. But it's not going to stick. But he's going to be talking about this. This is his signature moment.
It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
But you starting a novel here? Setting the mood.
Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everyone
was cheering. They were Trump. Fish boy, they're saying.
Was happy. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and
he began speaking strongly and powerfully. I'm a powerful man with a strong voice. I'm a strong, powerful man.
Happily.
Happily?
Because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing.
The best numbers in all history. I just have the best. Somebody who brags this much is not a godly person, right? Zero credit to God. I mean, here he's trying to give a little credit to God for making him turn his head and making the bullet miss.
In order to see the chart, I started to
There's a fish boy
this.
moment. Fish boy. Look at the fish boy go. Look at it. This bullet should have went right in here.
Turn to my right.
Like it's just an open little.
And was.
Okay, so I just crapped all over that. So let's go back.
Happily. Because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like
Turn his head.
this, turn to my right, and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me.
There's the image here. He's got a little bit of a crypt keeper mullet here, and but this isn't factual because we're going to watch it, and this is not what happened.
Really, really hard.
There's a bullet there. See, it's a real bullet, you guys. Look at it.
On my right ear, I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place.
Okay, so we know that's to be a lie, right? Like Trump is just, why not watch the video and see what happened? So here is, let's start here. I'm going to show you a longer version. He's already turned this way, right? He was turned this way for a while. It's like a minute he was talking about the chart.
Something that said, take a look at what happened.
So I pointed this out in my last video. He turns his head, but his skull was in the same position. Like they're saying he turned his head and somehow that made the bullet miss his skull, which is not the case. You can see his head is still occupying the same space, but he had been in that position for a while. We'll get back to that. Okay, let's look at the thing there. When let's go back here. No blood. Nothing there. There's no blood at all. Zero. I looked at my hand. It was so much blood. It was covered in blood. So there's no blood at all, right? And, I mean, like, he's bringing in these WWE guys and this whole, the blood that they use, blood and Christ and the way the religious connotation here. But that was not what happened. What he said it happened isn't what happened. So here's a more extended version from Fox. So it says here, Joe Biden, you're fired, which is interesting because the bullets are going to come here. But he acknowledges the chart.
And that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that.
So he keeps on. So this is going to go on for, I think, about 30 to 40 seconds. And he had already acknowledged the chart. So maybe for a minute, he's already turning his head. So if the alleged shooter is trying to, think about, like, if this was a deer, Trump's head is moving, but not in terms of where this space it occupies. He's turning it back and forth, but his head isn't moving. So let's put it this way. I'm not being clear about this space aspect, but the bullet, let's say there's a target right behind Trump's head, right? And the bullet's heading straight for that target because the bullet's traveling in a straight line. And so, again, there's a lot of, things to do with the Secret Service that make this thing, not really believable, the way that they're saying it, the official story. But what they're trying to say, what Trump is saying, that God made him turn his head at the precise moment that the bullet would have hit the back of his head. By turning his head, the back of his head came forward, right? And the bullet only grazed his ear. And the guy said he was a millimeter away from dying, more like an inch, but, whatever that is. But we're talking about a small amount of area, right? A slight movement of an inch or so. And the bullet would have been over there. And this is what makes it more dramatic. It's great for the story. It's great, this whole thing, the WWE thing. It's a detail that really makes this story compelling. And even Mark Zuckerberg, I have the end of the video saying it was a badass thing to do. And, his enemies are saying how badass it was for Trump to get up and be all bloody and pump his fist, right? So, but if it's not real, then what is it? Like, if he's pretending to be a badass, it's worse, right? It's worse like he's not a badass at all. He's a complete faker and, deceiver and a horrible human being. But when he turns his head, the back of his head moves forward, the other part of his head moves backwards. You understand this? So if it was going to hit him in the back of the head, it's going to hit him, because he's only moving slightly. If they're saying that, he moved significantly when he's turned his head, and his head was turned for a while because he's pointing at that chart for over a minute. And so when he moves his head, the front of his face would have moved forward, right? And so, it's a silly, it's just a part of the miracle story because he's talking about, being providence, divine providence. That's what he's going to use as a phrase for this thing. He's bringing God into the thing. And clearly, the story doesn't hold up. And, his head was turned this way. We'll get into that in a moment because the shooter would have been, for the most of this period of time, his head was pointed at the sign, and he turned away back into the microphone. We'll see that in a bit.
So that arrow is the lowest amount of...
Because his body's already turned in this position, right? So his head isn't going to move the way that he says because he's already acknowledging the
legal
chart.
Immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then...
He's facing the chart right now, and the guy is supposed to be scoping him out. Doesn't have a scope, but he's trying to put him in his sight, right? So he's trying to, set up this shot. So, it's 20 seconds in, and his head is pointed the way it is going to be when he gets shot, right? And so if the guy is, it's like if you were hunting a deer or putting your, a bullseye in a scope, his head isn't really moving because he's turned that way.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over, and look what happened.
So he's turning his head back and forth
to
here.
our country. Probably 20 million people.
See, he's going back and forth. I don't think his head really moves at all in terms of what they're saying because his shoulders are turned towards the chart. It's 30 seconds into it. This guy's supposed to be, saying, all right, why don't I wait till he stops? Why wouldn't he wait till he isn't looking at the chart anymore, right? He's got time, I mean, sitting there, he's sitting there with a gun and, he's used a rangefinder and the Secret Service haven't taken the guy out, right?
And, that's a little bit old, that chart.
It takes a while for you to even, find him with your sight, right? If you're looking at say, a deer and you're hunting, it isn't if you ever look through binoculars, if you haven't used a sight and a rifle, if you ever look in binoculars, which are a lot easier to use because they're moving, they're not attached to a rifle, like a heavy object, and you can't find things, right? You're looking around, there's a bird, and you want to look at the bird more closely. You're looking around with the binoculars. It takes you a while just to find and locate the object. And it's even more so when you're using a scope and a rifle to locate the exact spot and set, and you're doing it in a way where you're not waving the gun all over the place, right? And so the guy has to locate Trump's head using his rifle, and the Secret Service already know that he's there because they saw him using a rangefinder, which we know from a CNN report, right? And so, I covered that in my last video. And so they're watching that guy, and they know he had a rangefinder. So when he puts the rifle down, he's got to find Trump with the scope. And so whatever period of time he's doing that, Trump, he can see that Trump's head is moving around. And so it isn't a clean shot if his head is moving in and out of the scope, right? Because it's moving. It's 32 seconds in, and he's moving it all over the place.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you...
But the majority of this period of time, the last 30 seconds, this is where his head is, and this is where his head is when he gets shot.
Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
I got one more thing to show you. I'm going to jump in here because I was saying the same thing over and over here. But I said something about the Secret Service. I think last night I made a little audio. I want to go to that. But before I do that, there was a comment I just received. And one guy was saying, oh, now you're a forensic expert, Paul, these disgruntled Trump people. And another guy said, yeah, this is an easy shot. They were both saying it was an easy shot from 150 yards. There's a big difference between having a scope or not a scope. But nothing's an easy shot if you've never killed somebody before, right? They're making it sound like, this guy was a trained assassin, right? He, went out and shot with his dad. He had his dad's gun, right? His dad's AR-15. But the Secret Service, these guys are trained assassins. And, 150 yards is a long way. Like, with the scope, it brings it closer. But it's how accurate your scope is at all these things, right? You have to test your scope, and it's not like where you put the bullseye in the scope, the bullet's necessarily going to go there. And is there any movement in the gun when you're ready to pull the trigger? All these things are factors. It isn't an easy shot. A headshot from 150 yards for some 20-year-old kid, like when this is the official story, whatever you want to say it is. But for the snipers with a spotter on the other side of the roof to take out the kid who was 130 yards away, in fact, Trump bragged about how it was only in one shot they took out. He'll say that in a moment. He's bragging about the snipers. We get back to that. But let me play the clip, the audio I did about the Secret Service, because it's imperative to understanding the whole point here. Okay, so it's Friday, July 19th. Had a good meditation. Friday night at 9 meditation is something that we used to do. I still do from the Sajmark meditation. And there was just something that came from, when you're just, when you're in a more settled place, like half the time I'm running around doing farm work. I'm not half the time. This is my days now. I got major farm projects, and I'm cranking out 2-hour videos, 3-hour videos every 2 days. And, all the other things, making meals, doing stuff with my wife and, my dogs and stuff like that, right? And so it's been like a little bit more hectic than normal for me, like whatever. But anyways, there was some clarity. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you a clip of Mark Zuckerberg saying Trump pumping his fist was badass. And I get into, well, what if it was fake, right? It's only badass if it actually happened. And people are, pretending that there should be no doubt, right? But one of the things I want to add to that here, because I go in a different direction at the end of the video, but one of the things I want to add is the Secret Service was either extraordinarily incompetent, or they were a part of assassination attempt on the president, or it was some fake thing and they just were told to stand down, right? And so there are two things that stand out, number of things, right? They didn't clear a building where there was eventually a shooter, and the shooter got up on the roof, which I've already talked about somewhere in here, probably by the time you listen to this particular audio, that I'm going to insert this somewhere in the video, right? But we know that there was a guy walking around the event with a rangefinder for taking a shot at somebody at long distance, or he wasn't hunting deer. He was red flagged, and they said we need to keep an eye on this guy. He disappeared. He reemerged on the roof where multiple people saw him and videotaped him, and the Secret Service had him dead in their sights when he was using the rangefinder to be able to take a shot at Trump. And they, didn't advocate for this guy to be removed. They didn't shoot him, and then he got a gun and got off 7 shots in, or whatever it was, in about 7 seconds, and they already had a beat on him because they took him out in 1 shot, as Trump said. At least that's Trump's story, right? And so they already had him in the sights. They had 2 teams of people with, a sniper and a spotter, and they had the guy, right? And they didn't take him out. And so that was the first part. The second part is they then stormed onto the stage. They got Trump down and were covering him up so they couldn't be shot. And they let him get to his feet, and his head was exposed to multiple shots. Even Morning Joe and people were calling him out on this. Trump was waving his fist, and they allowed him. Again, they didn't know about the first shooter, and it was complete incompetence. Or the other 2 things I said, right? Either they were a part of it or they were told to stand down. But they weren't even Secret Service, and they were just actors. Whatever it was, they didn't do, like in a B movie, it would have been maybe acceptable. In some B patriotic movie, red meat targeting, red Republican type of, people who would patriots for that kind of movie, like some president, like a Harrison Ford, Air Force One, this stuff, right? Where there's this patriotic BS that goes on that's not realistic at all. And so they failed in a variety of other ways up into that point. Like there was other things, smaller things that they did. And so Trump was applauding the Secret Service. And he was calling it an assassination attempt, but he's not disputing the official story. It was some 20-year-old kid who was able to execute this. He was able to get off multiple shots at a former president. And as they all claim that, he had a bead on him and the bullet would have hit him if Trump didn't turn his head, which I, have debunked here. But either way, the Secret Service has either failed or they're compromised, right? And Trump isn't calling them out. A guy who's supposed to clean up the swamp, why isn't he calling them out, right? Why isn't he making a big stink about their incompetence? I mean, it's played well for him and him saying fight, fight, fight and all that bullshit. But, in reality, they failed him. At the very least, it's criminal incompetence. And at the very most, it's something much worse. They are a part of it, right? So why isn't he calling them out? Why isn't he naming them as, completely failing him? Because there's no way that this guy should have been able to, get off even one shot at him, and never mind multiple shots. And there are, people dead according to the official story, all these things. And so why isn't Trump saying anything, right? He said in, the speech, they pounced on me and they did such a great job, and he's praising these people. But clearly there's something else going on here, right? And so why isn't he saying anything? Because it's staged, right? Because they're doing what they're supposed to do, and you can't hold people accountable and have people look into this thing. There can't be any special investigation into it where there's going to be real results because, they don't want any of that. They don't want anybody looking into this thing. Trump doesn't want anybody looking into it. They just want to, go with the way it is. They don't want any questions asked, right? They don't want, any accountability. I mean, there should have been people fired already, and there's nothing going to happen because this is a staged event, and it's something where Trump isn't, he's happy with what they did because he's now going to be president again, and he's looked at as a hero, and these things, the way it's played out, because it's fake as F, right? That's, to me, that's the only reasonable explanation. Because otherwise, everyone should be calling out in Trump's circle the Secret Service for their failure, and he should be saying stuff like, they set me up, and, we can't trust them, I should get my own security, and, all these things, right? But he's not saying that at all. Because, it's fake, anyways. Okay, so here's somebody who's done a sort of mock-up of this thing. And they have the stage here, and over here is the billboard. Not the billboard, this is the chart Trump is referring to. It's slightly behind him and, almost parallel to where he is, right? And the building is partially behind the site. You'll see this in a moment, where the building is. The building that the shooter's on. And so there's also objects there, a crane and some things. So there's things blocking the guy's line of sight. But there's only one position the guy could be on the building where the bullet could go through his ear and not hit his head, right? To hit his ear would be precision. And if his head was in the right position, the guy wasn't in the right position as a shooter, the head would be in the line of fire. He just couldn't hit the ear. There's multiple factors here. And again, this is a mock-up, but we know by the way Trump is tilted that there's the snipers that take out the guy. The way Trump is tilted, that the sign is slightly behind him. There's also these bleachers here, right, which is possible obstruction. You'd have to be on the roof to see if the bleachers were in the way of the bullet. And so there's all these factors here, right? And, this is not an accurate picture here because of the way they've angled it, but the chart is slightly behind Trump, but he's turned sideways. Because Trump pointing to something that's behind him, right? He's not pointing to something that's, the sign is over here, right?
Right from the government services, comes right out of...
See, this woman, they're looking backwards here. They're looking perpendicular to them.
Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that...
See, where he's pointing right here. Look where he's pointing.
Amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country.
So he's, right, that's not something that's in front of him. He's not pointing at an angle. He's pointing directly perpendicular, which would mean that's where the guy would have to be. So you follow his line, where the guy would have to be in the sign itself in the chart to be able to make that shot to just clip his ear. He'd have to be straight across from Trump here, right? See, this is an inaccurate thing. The chart is actually right here. And the chart isn't over here. And the guy would have to be here to just hit his ear, right? Because of the way his head was completely turned and looking this way, the guy would have to go through his head. The bullet would have to go through his head, right? Like they have here, they have the bullet here. They have this here, right? This is the angle that they're saying happened. So I don't know if I'm making sense here, but you see the path of the bullet has to be, the position of the shooter has to be specifically in one area to just hit the ear, and not either side of his head. Either come through the front of his head to hit the ear, or go out the back of his head after he's hitting his ear, right? Because of the angle of the thing. There's a very precise angle here, right? But him hitting the ear and Trump bleeding is significant because it's saying, wow, my God, he just missed his head. This all the stuff that he's saying. It's a huge part of the narrative. So Trump bleeding as opposed to hearing shots, Trump getting down, and, just the rest of the thing without any graphics of Trump. I mean, it's important that Trump has a bloodied ear, that he's been hit by a bullet. This is the thing that Mark Zuckerberg and Cenk Uygur, who are Trump haters, are saying is badass. Like everyone's applauding Trump's bravery. But, if it's ketchup, that it's just the opposite of bravery, right? And Trump has shown over the years that he's very sort of squeamish and he's not a very physical guy. Like he wants to be a tough guy, but he's not, right? In fact, that's one of the things that I appreciated about him. Like he was talking big about war and using the nuclear weapons, that he'd have no problem using it. And he wanted to have a North Korea-style military parade for his inauguration in 2016, right? But he seemed to have a real issue with droning kids and bombing countries. Like he didn't seem to have the stomach for it, which I was glad for. We had all these illegal wars. This is part of what they were pissed off about him for, because he wouldn't follow through on some of their wars, the neocons and their desire for more military interaction, which they got under Bush and Obama. Trump seemed to be resistant to having any sort of these military actions, which was to credit him. But his desire to be a tough guy here and fulfill this narrative, like it's just this is really evil, right? This is like it was a miracle shot to hit him just in the ear. Like it's just something, and that's what they're trying to claim, that it's a miracle. So here's this shooter, and they have a scope on his gun, but there's no evidence he had a scope. And then they have the sign directly behind him. But Trump is, when he's looking at the sign, he is, he's going back and forth between talking to the microphone or looking at this chart here. But the person would have to be in the chart, or would have to be slightly next to it, not on the building. The direct angle to Trump's ear, right, to hit his ear, you'd have to be really where the sign is. See where he's pointing? This is where the bullet's going to be shot here. His head is pointing in that direction. And so the guy, to hit just his ear, he'd have to be where the sign is, which is slightly behind Trump. He'd have to be right where Trump's pointing. Trump would have to be pointing at the shooter right here. And so you see that a straight line just through Trump's ear is coming right from like the corner, in this particular picture, the corner of where the sign is, where the chart is. Not on the building that's over to the left where the shooter is, where they're claiming the shooter is. Do you understand this? The guy's position has to be perfect to him to just hit his ear. And where that bullet's coming from in this mock-up is really where the chart is, right? Okay, so the counter snipers are over here. And they have to be able to shoot the guy. There's one on this building here, and one. I don't know if the bleachers are in the way of the line of sight, but there's the sign that's right here. So this is where this is. And so the guy has to be over here somewhere. Like he can't have a direct line of sight where he's perpendicular, where he could just hit Trump's ear, right? Let's go back here a second. So see where Trump's ear is before that thing, where he's looking this way. The guy would have to be, because Trump's head is tilted back slightly here, right? And so if the guy is over here at all, it's going through Trump's face. It's not going to hit his ear. The guy has to be in a straight line to his ear, which means he'd have to be slightly behind here where the sign is, right? So this shot isn't like even possible because of the sign. I mean, I'd have to go and see the place physically, but the guy would have to be over here, right? It's really hard to hit an ear. Like, look, you're hitting this little area right here without it going through this part of your face or this part of your head, right? So it has to be somewhere where the bullet, the straight line bullet, the geometrical path of the bullet has to go right through his ear without it's on the opposite side of his head, without hitting his face or his head, right? And so, coming a downward angle here. And so the guy would have to be like right here, right? Like right over here where Trump is looking at the sign. And so the whole thing looks freaking completely beat. We can't say this mock-up is 100% accurate, but the chart has to be there because that's where Trump is pointing. And so there's an area between the chart and the building, and also there's the stands where the fans are, there's Trump supporters. So this guy's way over here. There's no way he could hit at Trump's ear because Trump's not looking at him that way, right? The guy would have to go through Trump's face to get to his right ear. And so this is completely BS, right? Like there's just no way. There's all these obstructions to the guy, so he has to be in front of Trump because there's stands behind Trump, stands, and then there's the chart. And so the guy has one option to be here to get line of sight to Trump's head. And again, he's not trying to hit Trump's ear, so he doesn't give an F, right? He doesn't give a fuck about his positioning. He's not trying to just go through Trump's ear, which is the miracle shot. And it's imperative that the ear is hit for Trump's story to work, for his big moment. See, here is the sign. There's the sign here. There's a crane here, right there. So there's an object over here. The guy's somewhere on this building. He isn't going to be able to be over here because of the crane and the sign here, and the people sitting in the stand. So all those are obstructions to his line of sight. These guys are over here. They have a direct line of sight to the shooter, right? There's all this stuff going on here. Trump moving his head. The guy's so far away. It's just really goofy, right? So here, again, this is the sign right here. There's cranes and like flags and all this shit going on over here. There's the counter snipers here, and the building's off to this side over here. It just doesn't seem believable at all, right? Like it just doesn't seem realistic that the guy's going to hit Trump's ear and that he even had some direct line of sight to Trump. And that's why maybe there wasn't somebody over on that building, because they saw that there wasn't really a direct line of sight to the stage because of the sign and these things that are going on in construction. And people are sitting above Trump, right? There's these people up here, right? There's all these people that are sitting on these bleachers. So for them to, for him to see, he has to be above, there has to be a line of sight between him and Trump above where these people are sitting. And so, the whole thing just, the other piece to this is, the shooter had to go up, have a rangefinder. Again, he doesn't have a spotter or somebody with him. And as soon as he gets up on the roof, the counter snipers see him, and they see him using the rangefinder, and they put him in the sights, right? And so we'll get to that in a moment, I think, here. Did I show you that already? Did I edit that out? It's so long a video, but it took 7 seconds before he fired the first shot to where the snipers got him. Trump is going to say that I think that comes later in this video. But it takes 7 seconds. Trump says they got him with one shot. And so he gets off a number of shots, and then they take one shot. But they had him in the sights the whole time, right? You just don't, you have to sit down and, like I said, with the binoculars or anything like that, you have to find the object and, position it in the gun, all these things, right? So the whole process, and while he's up on the roof, he's a complete sitting duck for the counter snipers, right? So all of that is BS. The story just doesn't hold water. I got a few comments here. This came in. You're a liberal. You ain't making no sense. Have a nice day. I don't think you were sincere about the nice day. This is in capital letters. You people are sick to even think this was staged. God forgive you all. Bet this guy, you were sick to think that. Why are we sick? Because they stage everything. Trump is a pathological liar who's lied his whole life. He lies to you guys all the time. His lies have been caught. He's been caught lying all these different ways. And then there's all the stuff he's done with Stormy Daniels and all these things that he's done, right? He provokes people. He's a bad person. And he screwed people over in business. I've talked about this, over and over again. It's all there. The evidence is there. This is irrefutable. So why would you say that the government has staged stuff? That this, we're not sick to think it's staged. We could be wrong, but it's not like we're out there or even crazy. It's more than likely it's staged based on everything we know. And it says here, you people are sick to even think this was staged. God forgive you all. Bet this guy is a Biden supporter who just hates Trump. Just disgusting. Well, you didn't watch any of my videos. You don't understand me at all. The other person say, I don't understand the last person who said, this here, but the person who said, you ain't making no sense. Yeah, because you're a dumbass, right? It's like, this isn't like rocket science, right? Then somebody writes, what is all this crap about inner divine? Are you trying the hardest to say Jesus? You sound like you're afraid to admit that Jesus is the way, the light, all these things, right? Afraid to admit, no, it's not true because we're all children of God. You've been bullshitted, right? But this person says, ear-piercing crisis actor, what is the point of this video? I ain't watching it at all. Sorry. I ain't watching it at all. Well, it's kind of a big deal if he's a crisis actor and all these things, right? Like, it's just there. Like, this is a big deal. Like, this is a big event. There's these big events that they talk about. COVID, of course, and then there's these other events, the big event in January and these things that define this era and the candidates. Biden is going through a big event right now. I'm going to cover that in my next video. Everybody's turned on Biden, Pelosi, and Obama. They're all trying to get him. He just won't back down. He looks like a selfish prick, and all the things he accuses Trump of, he's acting like that. He's doing the same thing because they're the same guy, right? They're both, narcissistic, and, they're both self-centered. But it's all right here for you to see. You just don't want to see it. Like, it's not my fault. Like, I'm just saying these things, and they're threatening to you because you know they're true. Like, this guy isn't what you think he is. He'd have to be either, the way that he's positioned himself is, he's some divinely orchestrated savior sent by God to redeem America. And God's protecting him from, headshots and hitting him in the ear. And, this moment of him saying, fight, fight, fight. And the way they've aggrandized this, the whole thing with Hulk Hogan. This guy is, a miracle worker and someone who's going to change America, make America, all the things that he says, make America great again, all the things he says. He either has to be that or he's a lying sack of shit that's deceived you all. And, it's one of the two. It's not like he can be in the middle somewhere. He's not as bad as people think. He's either as bad as the left thinks or he's as good as the right thinks. Like, Trump has become that guy. He has to be one or the other. He can't be in the middle. So let's go back again here.
Very lucky I didn't do. When I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard.
See, even where this picture of the bullet is, right? The picture of the bullet is, again, it's not coming from that direction, right?
On my right ear, I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place.
Okay, we know that's not true.
Immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage.
Yeah, so here he is. This is where the blood is supposed to be pouring down, right? She's so concerned. Look at this woman. Oh my God. So, oh my God, I'm going to cry.
These are great people at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me.
They pounced on him.
So that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
He felt that. He really felt that. God was on his side. Not on the side of the people that, the other people that were there that were less fortunate than Trump, right? Or God wasn't on the side of all the people that have died in Iraq or, these other places, or anybody who just died, people getting turbo cancer because of the Operation Warp Speed. God isn't on their side. Who's that dude?
The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. The most incredible aspect of what...
So this is him pushing for his being a chosen one.
What took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It was very...
Because did he not hear the shots? Like, I wonder if there are people that are there, they all are what they're saying now, but is anybody saying they didn't hear shots? Right?
Unusual.
Because people started to get down, but they were looking at other people getting down. Let's take a look at that again here.
Take a look at what happened.
Okay, so some people are getting down, like, and some people are, what's happening? Did they not hear the shots? All the panic of this thing, right? Well, this is going to take a break. I got to go do some stuff. I'm going to come back and cover the rest of this. Let's go back here a second. Okay, so I'll go back into the Trump speech narrative in a second here. Just want to say a few things. So there's been a computer glitch. I just ate lunch and did a bunch of work outside. But they're calling this computer glitch that's knocked out millions of flights worldwide. CNN is saying it's what people thought Y2K was going to be, right? And it's not just affecting flights, and there's these other aspects. Looks like it's a Microsoft issue, in which course, But this isn't a glitch; it's a hack. There is also a hack that happened for AT&T, and one that affected like car dealerships, like CarMax and things like that, all in a span of a week. These various businesses, their computer, the computers went down, and they had to pay some sort of a bribe. They had to pay the hackers to get them back up, right? And so there's been 3 major hacks in a week at a time where the world's sort of falling apart. In hacking, there was that movie that just came out, with Julia Roberts and that thing that happened, whatever it's called, which was a hacking, that caused the collapse of the system. So, all the rest of it, right? It was based in another movie that I saw. I talked about that. A crappier movie that was made like a while back. It was like, remake with, more money, right? And so there's that. But what I want to talk about is, people were saying to me that you're cynical or you're jaded. Trumpers who think liberals and Democrats are evil and there's a deep state. But when it comes to Biden, when it comes to Trump, you criticize him and all of a sudden you're cynical and jaded, right? Because they can't face the truth. But in terms of anything that comes to us through the government and the news and the system and the beast, any of these things that they tell you, they're not believable because they've lied so much. Even if they're telling you the truth or the partial truth, they can never be trusted because even if they're telling you the truth, there's an agenda behind everything that they do. Everything that they report on, everything that they tell you, everything that is given to you as information, there is agenda and a reason why they're giving you the information. Even if it's true, it's still agenda-based, right? There's organic acts, there's acts of God and things like that. But even once those things happen, they try to warp that to fit their agenda and reinterpret the events. Oftentimes, they're given warnings, like all of us are, to reverse our course by the divinity within us and, the divine system. we're given warnings all the time, and our system and the people running this world are given warnings all the time, and they refuse to heed those warnings, right? As do most of us. So that's, a big part of the problem. But what I want to talk about here is, let's say you have a woman whose husband is cheating on her, right? And she talks, but she's already kind of dealt with it. She's not going to leave him, not going to divorce him. And she talks to her friend who finds out that her husband's cheating and she's going to divorce him, and she's all angry. And she's got to stop talking to her friend because it's bringing up all this stuff for her. Stuff that she's buried, stuff that she doesn't, she can't deal with it. She's got to ignore. Years ago, my ex was, her story was that she was sexually abused by her dad and physically, emotionally abused by her mom. That was her, what she told me was her, why she was broken. And there was a period of time that I was doing a lot of research on MK Ultra stuff. Like, as you're a truther, you go through these different phases of research. I don't do this kind of stuff anymore. I don't care about it. Like, I've just reached a point where it just doesn't matter to me. But back then I found it interesting. And I was listening to these women who said that they had suffered and been a part of some sort of governmental mind control programs. And they had been sexually abused, and they had been forced to have fragmented personalities and other things. And the stuff that they were saying was exactly like what my ex was. Like the stuff that they went through, the way that they acted, the way that it affected them. It was exactly the same thing, right? And my ex's father was a big Fortune 500 CEO guy, some kind of, successful person. He was part of the club, like in some way or whatever. So I showed my ex this stuff, and like some of it she had, her own behavior and her own personality configuration. And she'd have these moments where she'd break from reality and become a young girl. Like she would talk like a young girl, walk, take these little steps and only have 3-word sentences and things. And there was other types of alter personalities seemed to be, I didn't know whether she was acting. I mean, there's all these things, right? Being dramatic. I mean, it was hard to say because you can't figure out what exactly goes on in somebody. Some of it was definitely manipulative, but she couldn't deal with those things, right? And so I showed her the information. I showed her a few videos and things, and she kind of started to freak out a little bit. And she said that, she understood it to be what had happened to her in some way, not an official MK Ultra thing, but just she went through the same stuff that they do to these women who are these young girls who are part of this program or whatever, or, sometimes men or, boys or whatever. But she said something to me. She said that if she confronted all this stuff and tried to deal with it, she was worried that she'd be schizophrenic and she'd end up in a hospital and she'd never come back out, right? And so she'd go to a psych ward and she could never regain her sanity. And so it stunned me, and I was like, well, fuck, right? Like, personally, what did that mean for me, right? I mean, that was bad for her and, all these things, but she was a nightmare to deal with. Every time we got in an argument, I'd have to go hide the knives because she threatened to cut herself, commit suicide. Anytime it was really bad, right? I've talked about this extensively in the Journey series. So I thought about my situation, and, I couldn't leave the kids. And if I left, she would have the kids full time. I was protecting the kids from some of her outbursts. I was taking some of the, the crazier stuff, right? The kids had been sort of protected up to that point. They could hear things, but they weren't really in the room and a part of some of her, like when she just would flip out, right? And I realized, I couldn't leave and have her be, the sole, the sole parent and a single parent, because that just wouldn't be right. I didn't think I would be able to get the kids, right? But even if I did, they were homeschooling and they were so drastically behind, I couldn't homeschool them. I didn't have the ability. I thought my ex was better than she was at it. She just ultimately failed at it, right? But there was no money. There was no, there was no support system. There wasn't a way that I could figure out that I could say, a path where I could leave, where we could get divorced. It wasn't an option. I'm good at solving these types of puzzles, right? Things like this, seeing a way out, seeing a solution, and there was none. The only solution was that I had to stick with it, and I had to be as positive as possible with her. I could be critical and harsh and things like this, and I was like, well, you can't do that anymore. You're just going to have to de-escalate any drama. It was a real bummer. I went through, it was like a 2-week thing where I was like, oh man, this is my life. And I just had to accept it, right? I'm saying this because once I made that decision, if anybody said anything negative about my ex, I couldn't hear it. And I couldn't really talk to people about what I was going through, because what are they going to say, right? They would say you got to leave, or you got to get out of that. But I'm like, well, where, how, what can I do? There's no options, right? And so the best thing to do was just ignore it as best as I could, and focus in on whatever positive things I could, and there wasn't very many of them, and just soldier through, right? And people make those kind of decisions all the time. And it's what the Trumpers have done. They, deep down, they know that Trump's a piece of shit. They know he's a liar, and they know he's lying to them. I mean, there's low energy in the crowd, as you're going to see as he tells these stories, as I go through the rest of the debate. I mean, the rest of his speech. It's the same thing with Biden, because they believe that there has to be a solution, a political solution to what's happening in our country and our world, and that the system collapsing is not an option. It's too big to fail. And so stop talking about all the ways it's failing, and stop talking about how the system is evil, and stop talking about how it's affecting all of us, because that's just too much for them. And that's why, these people can't hear any of the things that I'm saying here, or other people are saying, right? They can't hear it, because when they realize that, that the Santa Claus that they believe in, or the Great Pumpkin they believe in, isn't real, and what do they do then, right? Like, so what they have to face the fact that the system isn't going to be saved, right? They're not going to be saved, and they desperately want to be saved in one way or another. And if you're one of those people, and I don't know why you would watch my videos if you are, but if you are one of those people, just don't tell me about it, because, just because you're too weak to do something doesn't make the truth that we all know and see, because it's so obvious to see about Trump or the rest of this, right? And just the lies and deceptions that the whole system does. Don't make us, we don't want to listen to your defense or your whatever it is, right? It's just, we've heard it enough from other people. We know what your position is, because we hear it from sheeple all the time. It's the same old excuses and, denial and bargaining and all these things. It's the 5 stages of grief, with not one of the stages being successfully navigated, just going back and forth to the various aspects of it. All right, so let's get into it here. Okay, so like I said, I just took a break, so let's go back a little bit here.
At great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe, because I had God on my side. I felt that.
He felt that. It's just really low. Just a really low thing he's doing. He's playing on people's, some of the stuff is pure stuff, like wanting to connect to God, wanting to connect to divinity, right? Like, that dude's really upset.
The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would...
So again, they don't know that, right? And I showed you the geometry about this, but
not be here tonight. We would not be together.
So this is, him being dramatic, and again, pulling on all the heartstrings. I mean, it's fake anyway, right? I don't know why he said, we don't know that, but, I don't believe any of it. But, let's say this happened and it didn't. It's just him manipulating everybody's emotions, right? Like, this is some, it's like Ray Romano's mother in that show, where she's all manipulative and using victim consciousness and poor me and, you're killing me and all these things, right?
The most incredible aspect of what took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know,
So this is a key point here.
and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual. This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. In fact, many of them bravely but automatically stood up looking for where the sniper would be. They knew immediately it was a sniper.
Yeah, because they've been programmed.
And then began pointing at him. You can see that if you look at the group behind me. That was just a small group compared to what was in front. Nobody ran, and by not stampeding, many lives were saved. But that isn't...
You know, when you get hit by a bullet, Fish Boy, you don't know what direction it came, right? Like, you might hear the sound from one direction, but that can be deceptive because it could be echoing off other places. And there's a large crowd there, it's loud or whatever. But, you know, you have to identify where the bullets are coming from, right? And you can, if you see some of them hitting or landing or something, and you know, that you could say, all right, they're coming from that direction. But when it happened to Trump, probably nobody really knew. The fact that they all were looking at that billboard, that chart, right? I mean, the whole thing, you know, again, let's just go through it here.
The reason...
Like, you know, you either accept it as being real or fake, or you believe it being real or fake, or you don't. Like, it's not, you know.
They didn't move. The reason is that they knew I was in very serious trouble. They saw it. They saw me go down. They saw the blood and thought...
They didn't see the blood. See, that didn't happen at all. Because there was no blood on your hand, no blood on your ear. Like, maybe a few people saw you on the ground. But again, that's just the people that are right behind you. There's all the people in the audience.
Actually, most did. That I was dead. They knew it was a shot to the head. They saw the blood. And there's an interesting statistic. The ears are the bloodiest part. If something happens with the ears, they bleed more than any other part of the body. For whatever reason, the doctors told me that. And I said, why is there so much blood? He said, it's the ears. They bleed more.
Well, there wasn't that much blood, right? Like, he was barely bleeding when he got up. It wasn't like it was pouring out. I mean, there was, you know, a lot of blood for, you know, like a fake a fake wound. But it wasn't for a lot of blood for what he's talking about here.
So we learned something, but they just...
Let's go look at the blood. So, you know, like, as he's going through the crowd, it's not pouring down his ear. Like, there's no blood coming out. You don't see, like, him bleeding. It was like punching the Secret Service lady. And you see the shots of the thing. It isn't like it's gushing and just running down his face. There's some streaks of blood, but it's not like it's still an active wound where there's all that blood coming down, right? And the people who were in the crowd, they'd barely be able to see that.
They just, this beautiful crowd, they didn't want to leave me. They knew I was in trouble. They didn't want to leave me. And
is that what it was? All of them are so cult members that there's bullets flying and they're worried about Trump? Like, that's sad. Like, there's people being shot and they're worried about Trump, right? There's bullets flying around. They could easily be hit. And they're saying, oh, let's stick around, make sure Trump's okay. Like, he thinks this is great because he wants to be that guy, right? He wants people to sacrifice for him. He wants all these things.
You can see that love written all over their faces.
That love.
Incredible people. They're incredible people. Bullets were flying over us, yet I felt serene. But now the Secret Service agents were putting themselves in peril. They were in very dangerous territory. Bullets were flying right over them, missing them by a very small amount of inches. And then it all stopped. Our Secret Service sniper, from a much greater distance and with only one bullet used, took the assassin's life, took him out.
Okay, so let's take a look at that, right? So it's the same thing that I was saying. Let's go back to what he just said here. So let's wait for the first shot.
Something that said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, so that's 2 seconds into the video. There's the shooting's over by 9 seconds. So 7 seconds of shooting, right? And so the same thing applies to the snipers for Secret Service. In 7 seconds, they didn't identify the shooter and shoot. They had that guy in their sights, right? It takes 7 seconds just to clear, to make sure you can take a shot, right? So the guy already had the guy on top of the building in his sights. He already had him zeroed in. You already knew the guy had a rangefinder because they had found it. You know, I showed you that clip. I'll talk about that more as we go through this. Well, I guess I'll talk about here because the Secret Service, this is where I want to talk about it. So I showed you the clip yesterday. It's on my other video that they're saying that he had a rangefinder and he went through security and they noticed it. And they said, well, better keep an eye on that guy because he's got a rangefinder. He disappeared for an hour or two, showed back up on the roof, and Secret Service saw the guy on the roof with a rangefinder, didn't tell anybody to get the guy down, didn't, any of the things that needed to be done there, shoot him or, whatever it was, right? And they had him in his sights because, they knew he had a rangefinder, so they knew where he was. They knew who he was. You couldn't miss it. When I showed you the pictures of the buildings, there's only one other building to worry about to be a counter sniper, and the guy got access to that building, which should have been secured, all the things we already know. But they didn't shoot him until he shot at Trump. They knew he was there. At some point, they must have seen him get his gun and zero in on Trump because, again, in a guy, he didn't have a sights, so he eyeballed it, which is, ridiculous. I mean, as far as we know, he didn't have any sights on his gun. And so, he didn't have any scope on his gun. So he used the sights, and as soon as he pulled the gun out, they should have killed him. He shouldn't have even got close to shooting. But that wouldn't have been as epic as it was with Trump having the bloody ear. Woo! Sniper killed him. Let's go back here. They're applauding the sniper killing him.
Assassin's life, took him out.
The sniper took him out. Woo! Took him out. Woo! Woo!
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. Yeah.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you're going to freaking cult followers. Yes, you are.
Thank you.
This is so fake. It's just his reaction. He's lying. What a piece of crap. But playing on this, I should have died that day. I should have died. And, I really did die and came back to, such sanctimonious. I don't even know what the proper word is. But playing on these people's emotions and just all of it. Because their hopes and their dreams and their savior, being saved is all tied to this clown. And he's just manipulating the crap out of them.
But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
Woo! This is where he's trying to claim, God's picking him as a chosen one, right? God likes his policies and likes his work and is backing him. But what he's saying there also is that the sniper, which is a 20-year-old kid, and, according to the official story, whatever it was, whatever he believes or whatever they believe, that someone was attempting to kill him, and God made him move his head at the right moment, and he was really supposed to die, which is silly. Because, for one, it just grazed your ear, and the imaginary bullet grazed your ear, and they threw ketchup on your ear. But, aside from all that shit, right? All of it. He's, if it's God's will, whatever his destiny is, we've all had close calls in our life, right? We've all had these moments where there's close calls and we survive something, missed, just a near miss. Like I said, that car almost hit me and my wife and I would have been dead. It was like seconds, right? And it made you appreciate, like, that's how quickly you could go. I mean, it was, kind of a big moment for me because, there's nothing that anybody could have done about that. There's nothing you could have done. My wife couldn't have seen the car coming because there's trees and, coming down the hill. And so the car came out of nowhere, literally. And things like that can happen all the time. And, you can die any second. And so you appreciate this opportunity, right? Because death isn't real for us most of the time. But in terms of what's happening here, for a guy who's had a near-death experience, he's got low energy. He's not bubbling and bright and all these things. He's just he's sort of morose here, morbid.
In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment.
See, he's saying it's a miracle. He was, some sort of a saint.
Probably was. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service.
When I rose from the dead, right? Coming from the way Jesus rose from the dead.
The crowd was confused because they thought I was dead. And there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it. I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
Well, what a fighter. What a brave man. It's pathetic. I just want to add this here. I'm editing. America is obsessed with fighting. It's just a big part of our culture, right? Just you fight, keep on fighting, fight cancer, all these things. And, you see these Eastern, more ancient countries, and there's a passivity there. And people who believe that God's internal and everything's destiny, and they're very passive, and they're very, I forget the word for it, but I guess fatalistic is one of the words. They don't believe in you can change your destiny. And they get their horoscopes, and they just, they're in their caste system in India or whatever, these Eastern countries. And it has to be a blend of these two things. Americans are repelled by the word surrender. You never surrender, you never quit, you never surrender. But there are times you just accept not surrendering is denying what God's trying to tell you. God's trying to tell Joe Biden, you're senile, hang it up, you got dementia, you have Parkinson's. In all these different ways, right? It's time to retire. You've seen this with all these various people. Dianne Feinstein, the last one, where they had to roll around in a wheelchair to vote yay. It was some horrible, she didn't even know what she was voting for. And so with Trump, there's been all these signs, just stop. You're causing all this drama. You're causing all this conflict. It made it completely about himself. And now they're going with it. The controllers right now are positioning Trump to win this election, which is a whole other, part to this thing, right? But either way, you have to blend the things where sometimes you have to work. Sometimes it's self-effort. Americans are blamed for failure, but sometimes failure has nothing to do with you. Sometimes failure is what your soul wants. If you're not aligned with your soul, you can't succeed. And so what you think is failure is usually you trying to do something that God doesn't want you to do. And so this obsession with fighting, it's at some point you have to acknowledge that God's trying to send you a message. And there's messages being sent to all of us and the leaders, and they're being ignored to our own demise, right? And so, the denial of something, all these Trumpers who are in denial of what they're seeing, we're going to keep fighting. We'll never submit to the reality that's being slapped in our face, that's being shoved in our face about this piece of shit lying and deceiving us all. It's not believable at all, his presentation here. He's just flat and fight, 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 fight. Fight, 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 fight. Look at these cult followers.
Thank you.
Look at these cult followers. There he is. And so they have the picture there. Right, they were waiting for this moment. I talked about this stage picture with this, the flag being right there, and the guy having the perfect angle and Trump having blood on his face right here, right? Blood pouring out of this gaping wound, you know? And this woman head with her head down and him with his hand up and all these things, right? And so...
Clenched, fist went up, and it was high into the air. You've all seen that.
It was high into the air. It's high into the air. I put my fist high into the air.
The crowd realized I was okay and roared with pride for our country like no crowd I have
Or God or you or what?
ever heard before.
Woo, that was so awesome. Woo. I can't believe you survived.
Never heard anything like it.
You survived an imaginary bullet, woo. So ketchup on your face, woo.
Never heard anything like it. For the rest of my life, I will be grateful for the love shown by that giant audience of patriots that stood bravely
Patriots.
on that fateful evening in Pennsylvania.
They're like the New England Patriots, cheaters and liars, deflators of balls.
Tragically, the shooter claimed the life
Spygate.
of one of our fellow Americans, Corey.
Okay, I gotta go do something, but I'll come back to this here. Okay, back at it here. This is a point in the video where I realized that once I'm done with covering this part, it's going to be, I have to get this thing out. Bunch of other interesting clips to get to for my next video, including Nancy Pelosi. Reports are coming out that all these people turned on Biden, or at least told him to get out of the race. He's struggling with that. He had another sort of meltdown in an interview that he shouldn't even give to some internet guy, right? So that's all happening. And we'll see what happens with this hack that shut down the airlines. I mean, there's big stuff going on, but this is so epic here.
Comparator, unbelievable person, everybody tells me. Unbelievable. And serious.
So now he's just so shameless. You know, he's milking this guy's death, right? This, you know, I mean, the official story. He's milking this thing. I mean, just in a shameless way.
Wounded. Two other great warriors. Spoke to them today. David Dutch and James Copenhaver. Two great people. I also spoke to all three families of these tremendous people. Our love and prayers are with them and always will be. We're never going to forget them. They came for a great rally. They were serious.
Are you never going to forget them? Like if someone asks you what their names are in 6 weeks, you're going to remember?
Trumpsters, I want to tell you. They were serious Trumpsters and still
They
are.
were serious Trumpsters. Trumpsters, it's a Trumpster fire, right? Trumpsters. Like they have all these cult names now.
But Corey, unfortunately, we have to use the past tense. He was incredible. He was a highly respected former fire chief, respected by everybody. Was accompanied by his wife, Helen, incredible woman. I spoke to her today, devastated, and two precious daughters. He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit. What a fine man he was.
It's so weird. He's kissing the guy's fire helmet, right? Like, it's just whatever you believe about this story. Whether you believe it's partially fake, whether you believe it's real, whatever you believe here. The official story is this guy died. And Trump has brought out his uniform and using it for a prop to push his, divine providence, divine intervention, chosen one, WWE stuff here, and push his agenda And he's going to talk about his agenda forever. It's just he gets into that whole thing. And so it's really bad. And then for him to come over and use this guy's, death as a way to self-aggrandize and, play on people's emotions. I mean, the stuff with God. He's just so shameless. It's not the first helmet he's kissed.
I want to thank the fire department and the family for sending his helmet, his outfit, and it was just something.
Uniform.
They're going to do something very special when they get it, but we did something which cannot match what happened, not even close. But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million.
The woman's wiping away a tear. These somber twin-looking guys.
For the families of David, James, and Corey, including from a friend of mine, just called up. He sent me a check right here. I just got it. $1 million.
He's got to bring the check out. You just couldn't tell me. You got to whip out the check, right? And you didn't show anybody. Woo, $1 million.
From Dan Newland. Thank you, Dan.
You want to go to that guy.
And again, when speaking to the family, I told them, I said, well, I'm going to be sending you a lot of money, but it can't compensate. They all said the same thing. You're right, sir. We appreciate so much what you're doing, but nothing can take the place in the case of Corey. And the other two, by the way, they were very, very seriously injured, but now they're doing very well. They're going to be okay.
God saves them as well.
They're going to be doing very well. They're warriors.
Warriors.
So now I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey.
This is what I want to show you. Watch this. Look at this devil-eyed dude right here, right? Jared Kushner, who bought Park Avenue 666. I mean, he's like the Antichrist. He's showing back up. Him and Ivanka had ditched Trump, but now he's got to show back up. And look at him. Everyone else got their eyes closed, observing a moment of silence. And look at this guy. Look at him. Like, Then he looks down, but he keeps his eyes open. Like, look at him, right? Like, just, what's wrong with that MNFer?
There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours, and this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement and greatness. This is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody.
It doesn't sound that way, right? He sounds very melancholy. His demeanor, it's throughout the whole speech. Like he called Joe Sleepy Joe and Low Energy Jeb. What did he call him? Low Energy Jeb. And he's totally low energy. Like he's not pumped up. And I know he's trying to be subdued and talk about this tragic event, but as he goes through the rest of it, he's very low energy.
And greatness, this is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody in this room.
So after this part, Trump goes back to being Trump. His speech is a very typical Trump speech. Same rhetoric. Like he said he wasn't going to say Joe Biden's name. Like this was something a Republican guy on the set of CNN, same guy that was there after Biden's disastrous performance in the debate. And he said that this speech was going to rock the world. It's going to be nothing like any other Trump speech. It's going to be positive. He's going to deliver a very inspirational message. And he's not going to say Joe Biden's name. But eventually he says Joe Biden's name. I'm not going to show you that part because it's too long. It's another hour long, and it's just, the same old crap. But he goes after Biden over and over again, and he says his name down. He goes, I'm only going to say his name once. But again, he takes no responsibility for being divisive, for being hostile, for attacking people. All the Trump shit he's done over the years, all the stuff he's known for, the tweets, the late night tweets, the aggravated language, the inspiring his people to be violent and protest and things like this, the election, big event, all the things that he's been blamed for, takes no responsibility for the rhetoric and just talks about the left needing to change, just like Joe Biden did, saying that Trump had to change. Neither one of them saying that they escalated the situation, and just classic Trump. So there's no change in him, was what I'm saying. There's nothing different. He hasn't been affected by this, like he said. They're saying it's a transformational moment. We've all had those moments that change our trajectory, and it's not. It's not changing his trajectory. He's just milking this for everything it's worth in a shameless way. Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you. We love Trump. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. He's very melancholy, very mumbly. He's not delivering. He's not nailing this speech. He has way lower energy than anybody else that came up. Like he's, They just keep on showing this lady.
Our resolve is unbroken and our purpose is unchanged to deliver a government that serves the American people better than ever before. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is right.
What do you mean nothing will stop you? Like something could have stopped you yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever it was, Saturday. What do you mean nothing's going to stop you, right?
And our cause is pure. No matter
You mean God will save you every time?
What obstacle comes our way, we will not break, we will not bend, we will not back down, and I will never stop fighting for you, your family, and our magnificent country.
Woo! He's such a warrior. Woo!
Never
ever see they're all wearing this thing. I got a guy. I'll show you at the end of this. Look at this frickin' Adam's apple.
And everything I have to give with all of the energy and fight in my heart and soul, I pledge to our nation tonight. Thank you very much. I pledge that to our nation. We're going to turn our nation around, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you.
So now it turns into a typical Trump speech. He's going to talk about positive agenda here and being positive for a moment, but then it's just going to devolve into a Trump speech.
This election should be about the issues facing our country and how to make America successful, safe, free, and great again.
Great again. Woo! Woo!
In an age when our politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That sounds familiar.
And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody...
Just on your side, but you totally want to do it. You totally want to censor people on the left, right? He's done this a lot. But now he's going to whine about his stuff.
...has ever seen before. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent.
Woo! They should change immediately because of the shot to my ear. Look, I'm bleeding in the ear. Gushing. There was like a geyser of blood gushing out of my ear, and now the Democratic Party should stop doing this.
As an enemy of democracy. Especially since That is not true. In fact, I am the one saving democracy for the people of our country.
Woo! Woo! This is opposite of what he was saying. Woo!
And very big news, as you probably just read. On Monday, a major ruling was handed down from a highly respected federal judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, finding that the prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional, and the entire case was thrown out of court.
So then he's just going to get into it. He's going to talk about it, and I should play this because it's typical Trump, and it's so long and boring. But he's just...
No other war because of weaponry. The weapons are no longer army tanks going back and forth shooting.
So World War III.
Person. But in less than 4 years, our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure. It's been a...
And it's just the audience, just like they're just drained. He's got no energy. And this is the kind of whiny speech he's been giving now this past year, since starting the campaign.
Tremendous failure. Today our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being...
So he gets into all this stuff, right? Like it's just
with numbers that nobody has
the smattering of applause, braggadocious.
ever seen, and we will reduce our debt, $36 trillion. We will start reducing that. And
you didn't do it your first time. You added a record amounts of money to it.
We will also reduce your taxes still further.
So how can you do both things? Reduce the debt and taxes?
And by the way, they want to raise your taxes 4 times. Think of it.
So then here.
2 things on day one, right? Drill, baby, drill, and close our borders.
Woo. And so he just goes into a typical Trump stuff.
If properly stated, it would never start. We will replenish our military and build an Iron Dome missile defense system.
Yeah, just all. And at the end of it here.
And they prevailed because they had faith in each other, faith in their country, and above all, they had faith in their God.
So he's really invoking God more than normal because he wants to, own the religious aspect of this. He barely ever talks about God.
Just the rich and wonderful tomorrows that our people so truly deserve, America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before.
Yeah, it's not. Come on. He's the great divider. Just silly. Because of his ear. Woo! Woo! Cheeseheads. He's so weird.
And quite simply put, we will very quickly make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wisconsin. God bless you.
Wisconsin. He did make America great again in the first place. Like he claims he did, but he didn't. We are where we are now, right?
God bless you, Wisconsin, and God bless the United States of America, our great country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
This family comes out. The audience didn't inspire confidence. It's the kind of people you see at Walmart. Here comes Melania walking out. With, that dude, Melania, coming out here with Trumps. Right? Giving him a little freaking thing. Hey, there you are. There she is. Give a little smooch. Kiss his ear. What's she doing? Don't bite his ear. You got Mike Tyson, his ear sort of thing. She's not psyched ever since the Stormy Daniels stuff. They're holding hands. Look, there we are together. Me and Melania. Look at them. Oh, look at these two. Point at a few people. It's just the fist point the fist. It's just low energy from him. Didn't deliver, trying to be divine and also WWE. Didn't deliver on either of those things. He just sucks so much. It's pandering to people's, emotions and their weakness and their lack of intelligence, and playing upon all these things with it. Just typical Trump. Okay, so this is Mark Zuckerberg, and he also thinks what Trump did was badass.
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time. And that includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And, on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's, and I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
Yeah, but what if it's fake, right? We'll get into that at the end of the video. What if it's fake, right? So all these people think that Trump, even you have liberals thinking this was great, and all these people think he's going to be a shoo-in to win, all this kind of stuff, right? And, there's no sense in them, there's no possibility for them that it might be fake, right? That this might be completely fake. Even with all the bullshit and all the things that they've done, all the stuff that's questionable, just the character of the people, all the staging, it's not just that, it's the publicity and, how people set up their own personal, Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts and social media accounts to make themselves look different than they really are, right? Taking hundreds of pictures to get the right one and, doing things like that, staging and doing things. I gave the example of my wife and I were walking on the beach, and there was a father filming his daughter playing with their dog, like she was a teenager. And, they were making a big deal about it. And I said, as soon as he put that camera down, she probably won't pet that dog for like 2 months, or, she probably doesn't pet that dog but she's out there playing with it so she could post it on Instagram, right? Everything's about that kind of a thing, where people are trying to pretend their lives are different and set things up and look differently and be differently and use filters, and so everything's fake, right? Everything's people are faking things all the time, just individuals, and you have these people have publicists and brand teams, brand managers, and multiple levels of people that are responsible to choreograph this idea of political theater. All that stuff is true, and we saw the political theater when I showed you guys the video a couple of videos ago of all these candidates, all these politicians, asking if somebody who fainted, somebody who clearly was a shill in the audience, if they needed water, and there was a whole thing they went through. And, it was so many different people. I showed you the whole compilation. There's political theater. So there's a possibility that they could stage these things. Of course, the intelligence community stages things all the time, right? And we know about just filmmaking and all those things, that they've hired filmmakers. The movie Wag the Dog. And so there's a possibility that this thing could be fake, right? And once you let yourself believe there's a possibility, then of course there is, right? There's so many people who can't see Trump for who he is, but the guy is not hiding who he is, right? There's a comment I just received. Let me see if it's still... Yeah, here it is. It's to my last video. Trump donated his salary. Trump at the RNC wanted to cry the entire night, especially during his speech. I guess the person said why they wanted to cry. Trump at the RNC wanted to cry the entire night, especially during his speech. So this is a person who wanted to cry and saying Trump donated his salary. Now, I'm going to ban this person. They're not saying anything to me. They're not, being douchey. They're just verbalizing their support for Trump. The issue is you got to know by now that the guy's fake. And this, people have said this before, him donating his salary. You just can't, conceptualize the kind of money he has, right? This guy's a billionaire. He has $1,000 million. His daughter, Ivanka, and her devilish son, Jared, made a deal with the Saudi Arabian company or whatever it is, government, for $2.3 billion, which was completely connected and contingent on his presidency. So they did what Hunter Biden did. They monetized his presidency. $2.3 billion. That's $2,000 million. The president's salary is $400,000, right? It's nothing compared to what Trump probably makes that in a day or at least a week. And, depending how they manage the money. But they said he's worth $6 billion now. And he monetized the crap out of the presidency. And so $400,000 is nothing to him. But did he do it in a way where he gave back the money and he or donated the money to the RNC and, did it in a way where he was he didn't let everybody know that he donated his salary, that he was working for free? He wasn't working for free. His family got paid because of his presidency, just like Hunter Biden got paid with Joe Biden's political career, selling access and all these things. I mean, and Trump he's that guy. Like he's not hiding it. He was that guy on The Apprentice. He was that guy before. He is a person that's, his big ego with his giant name everywhere, right? His small hands, his big name, and all that stuff. Trying to be divine and be out there. He's all about himself, and he's just there. It's not like it should be easy for people to see. You just don't want to see it. He screwed he screwed all of us on Operation Warp Speed. He got rolled in the election. He's petty, and he played himself. Like at the end of his presidency, and he's been a disaster ever since. He was entertaining up to that point. He was entertaining the way he drove the liberals crazy. But that wore thin as he, continuously screwed all the other people. He screws everybody over in his life. People who are loyal to him for a long time, he throws them under the bus. He's just that guy. And you want to cry because of his speech, his bogus, it was fake. And if you let yourself open to the possibility, it's easy to see. So let's wrap this one up here. It's a long-ass video. But I just want to say, Biden's done. His brain is cooked. People know he's got Alzheimer's or he's got Parkinson's. He's not functioning. The Democratic leadership has turned on him. He has no way of winning. I don't know what Kamala will do or not. I don't care. The presidency means so little to me, but I'm just sick of Trump. And this is a new low for him. He's worse than those guys. Because those guys aren't pretending to be divinely inspired. I mean, Biden kind of flirts with that. Biden's he's just too far gone to do this much damage. But Trump is just shameless. He's just icky. It's not funny anymore. It's not, interesting. He's just a POS. And his cult-like followers, it's bad. And when if he wins the election, which it looks like he will, it's going to be really bad. This is the apocalypse. It's going to be way worse than his first term. It's going to be bad. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.